Rent a truck, rent a bunch of cars.
Yeah, they can.
Electric signs.
Now we,
Here, other than that, most of the stuff is just cleaning up some other, but those are the two new ones on.
All right, we are live, Chair.
Master plan on the
Right.
park.
Well, welcome everybody to the August meeting of the Administration and Public Works Committee. We got some stuff to talk about this evening and we've got a P and Z meeting here in a little bit, so we're gonna get right to it. Amy, why don't you call the roll?
Councilmember Preston. Councilmember Mabry.
Here.
Councilmember Nyan. Sure. Councilmember Farmer.
Here?
Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
Councilmember Bockert.
Present.
Councilmember Vanek.
Here.
Councilmember Albers.
Here.
All right, that brings us to the approval of minutes. I know we had a little thing that Mr. Mabry found that we've gotten fixed, so unless there's anything else, I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes.
I read them.
All right, motion made by Mr. Mabry, seconded by Mr. Backer. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the meeting minutes pass. That brings us to public participation. There is nobody in the room. Don't think I see anybody online.
No one is online at this time, Chair.
All right, so nobody's online, nobody's in the room. So we'll go ahead and close public participation. So that brings us right into our form information section where we have our monthly reports. Tom, I assume this is you?
Chair. All right, so tonight, we based off our last meeting in July, we have implemented a new reporting mechanism for both code enforcement, courts, and our police, just to kind of have it on a standard footing. That said, we were hoping to get our police and court reports done and turned in today. We are still waiting on the headquarters down in Clayton to get us the report, but they will be getting that. It'll be included in my CA report coming out this Friday. The same can be said for the courts. The only issue we have, and we might want to discuss maybe having the July and September, because it's when on Friday, that's when we closed out the books. You had to have it running all the way until the last day of the month. That said, it usually takes about a week to finalize all the numbers when people are paying and whatnot. So we can have those reports. We'll have the July version ready to go via the CA report, but also bringing that back at the next meeting if that would be preferable to the committee. But I wanted to address that before we took on the code enforcement side.
Yeah. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Anything's better than what we've had in the past.
Yeah.
So I mean, if it, and I don't think we should have everybody stop doing what they're doing to get a report ready for 2 days. So I mean, if,
I almost think, I mean, if you put that into your report, if
yeah.
there's a question, we can ask about it, but I don't know that we need to like do it in every meeting.
In that case, then what we'll do is we'll have it attached to the CA report, and we can have it included as well as an item for just the work session, just so the public can be notified as well.
Cool,
And then that said, the code enforcement side, we've been busy.
looks like it.
But if any questions, more than happy to answer. But really that, when you're looking at trends, this is it's what I expected to see for the first month, especially a month like July. Really trash containers being stored outside where they shouldn't be. And then also tall grass, which ironically, it seems to be the nuisance for all cities. But that said, those are the two major ones. But the cool thing is kind of breaking it out by ward. The hope is to these fun little pie charts here. We'll break down your ward based off what are the top nuisances that are the issues that are being reported. But for the ward breakdown, you can kind of see who's, where the number of inspections are going, where our code enforcement officers are working. Ward 3 took the cake this time for having the most. They-
I know.
we'll keep tracking that though, but it does seem to, it is gonna be very helpful to be able to see what kind of codes are being broken, violated. In that case too, we can maybe start looking at a proactive measure too, especially for grass and the storage of trash containers.
That's you're the winner.
I just-
Yeah,
Questions.
let's have the winter talk.
And this is really to save time for the city, because most of these I'm not aware of, some of them I am sometimes. And then I don't ever know like the follow-up. I know code enforcement goes out there. But then people will ask me, oh, did you hear, or did they, if they haven't heard or whatever, is there like a system that once they've gone, and maybe there's only so much they can say depending on what the violation is and what they're asking people to do, but does that automatically get out to them and say, we've been there, this is the result?
So if they go through MyGov right now, it is programmed, if they put their email in and they report it through MyGov. Or if they give me their email, what I've been doing is putting their email in, like, even though I fill out the form, or whoever will fill out the form, are instructed to put the resident's contact information, and they should get a bounce back email that says, hey, this has been confirming receipt of the request.
Right.
Then they should get messages throughout the process as it gets closed. That said, we have another item on the agenda today to kind of clean that up as well.
That
We're
doesn't
actually,
work quite as well.
it doesn't work as well as we'd like it to. So now we're actually looking at a couple different other software solutions. We are under contract with MyGov until March of 2026, so it's gonna, we were kind of stuck with them until then. That said, an RFP has actually been published to help find a solution. The department had a couple in mind that seem to have that notification system a little bit more just developed, and they also have geospatial. The best part about it is the geospatial technology of it. There's a couple that a resident, just from reporting purposes, they open up the module or they press the link on the website, it'll bring them up where they are. It uses, if you allow the service to know your location, it'll pinpoint you there and says, is it around here? If not, you type in the address and you can report it. But for someone that just wants to get a quick, they see their residence, their neighbor's yard is a little in disrepair, they can literally see it and not have to scroll over a map or put in an address. They can just click it and say tall grass. So that's the hope. There's a couple software solutions that I'm pretty positive will be able to do that. Right now, though, I do encourage, we're working out the kinks, but I encourage any resident to submit it through MyGov, and if they have an issue getting a notification back when it's going through the pipeline, I can at least track that, and that'll help with the iron out the software while we still have it.
Mr. Marshall?
Do we have an agreement with Republic that they do a communication every year?
Yes.
So I guess my question would be, wouldn't it be in our best interest to have them send a mailer out telling people about when the trash cans and they need to move back, and then show the regulation there, since it's the biggest offender? And most people say, I never saw it, but I think if we put it there and from a communication standpoint, and then also reiterate the corrugated situation, because I still see it where people leave all the boxes out there and they're not picking it up, but I don't think anybody's going to the door to say, we're not gonna pick it up because you didn't break it down. But I would think that we could encourage them, since it's such a big, now we have numbers, we could say, hey, we really believe you should get your communication out to all the residents about when the trash cans come out, when they can go back in, and that they have to be behind the side of that. They can't be in front of the house or
Out of view.
just a thought.
We can definitely do that. We also have the upcoming Gazette too. We could put a little graphic in there as well.
Well, I mean, something like this would be good if you're like, hey, most of our code violations are, garbage cans and tall grass. That's a thing that should go in the Gazette, because it kind of doesn't seem to really matter. Well, I guess Ward 6 obviously is a little bit different, but most of them are about the same. That'd be good too.
And part of 1 and 6 would have Meridian or Gateway, new guy.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, they're required to.
Another
see that.
place, we have the new resident packet. And I think that maybe you could include something that says, here's like the top 10 list to stay out of trouble. You just-
We know where
follow
you
these
live.
things, you're probably gonna be, in okay shape. Maybe include something like that in that new resident pack. At least you will educate those new people moving in, and over time.
Yep.
That'll become a significant number.
All right.
We can definitely do that.
I was just gonna say, one you could add in that top 10, and this isn't really blocking the sidewalk. I think it's more in the summer because people have extra cars, put their college kids home, and I hear people, I have to go out in the street with my dog and blah, blah. So that might be something people don't even think about.
We can definitely.
I don't know if that's an ordinance. I don't know if you're not allowed to do, I think you. I
When you
don't
say blocking the
think-
sidewalk, is
Like
that?
if somebody parks their car,
Cause you,
it's like sticking
you're
it.
close to the sidewalk, so
Oh.
people have to go around it and get
Yeah.
on the sidewalk to go.
I'm positive that it's a code.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so.
Mr. Mabry?
Thanks. I've just reviewed the quarterly crime report and it shows incidents, which shows that we're tracking the same well as we were last quarter. And so is the, general area it's called. But what I think would help would be increments per 1,000 or per 10,000 residents of both the general area and our city. Our city's 33 or 35,000. Because I don't know what general area means, the confines of St. Louis County or something else.
Yeah.
So if that benchmark measurement was included, we'd say, well, our speeders are 1 in 100,000. But the general area, whatever that is 250 per 100,000. And
Yeah.
Wildwood is a really happening city if we can keep our crime comparatively that much lower by percentage than the general area.
Yeah, I think that, and then, I mean, the general concept I've talked to Captain Mondell about it, that ideally, I don't know if we'll be able to do it, that I would like to try to get to is, you know, when we contract the county police, whether it's us or like Fenton or any of these other cities that do it, we all pay the same amount for an officer and all that kind of stuff, which makes sense. But it is helpful, at least for me, to understand that, like, you know, we have a very low crime rate. Do we have a very low crime rate because we have so many police officers? Do we have a very low crime rate because of the demographic shift? What is our crime rate per number of people compared to somewhere else? So then, to me, that just helps us when it comes to budget time, going like, you know, do we need this or that? Cause I know last year we had a conversation where just because of the timing shift of their scheduling, like we dropped 2 officers, which seems like it didn't affect us, which is what we kind of thought, but then there have been some metrics where at a certain point it was like 50% less of something, and that's kind of started raising red flags. So the idea is, like, we want to be able to get it to a place where we can understand a dollar value for crime, for lack of a better way of saying it. So those ideas are great, just like, you know, giving us a better idea of like, what are we compared to this other place that is, you know, 12 miles down the road, that it has the same, you know, setup with the police officers, stuff like that. I think that'll help us tremendously, because our police contract is like the biggest thing that we've got. So we need to really be able to speak intelligently to the residents as to why. I don't think anybody's gonna complain if we're spending more on police so we don't have crime, but we wanna be able to talk that through for sure.
I got a quick
Yes, sir.
question regarding, if somebody was to park their RV or their trailer in front of their home, for more than 24 hours. Is that zoning, is that a violation of zoning regulation, recreation vehicles, boats and trailers? Or is that a nuisance vehicle, certain conditions? It's the trailers.
Yeah, it's a nuisance, but it can also be, I would say it's probably in our traffic code too. I know it's against the law. That said, the problem is enforcing it, because they can technically have it for 23 hours and 59 minutes and then move it.
Yeah,
And then I think like
well,
the frequency is
that'd
3
be-
times.
Yeah, and then there's a 2-hour.
Yep. So if they just drive it though to their friend's house or whomever, but typically what happens is we send out an officer and we'll have them just talk to the individual if it seems like it's becoming a consistent issue. Our code enforcement guys can also take care of it, but sometimes it does help to have an officer to say hello.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just a quick thing, the number of officers that are working at a shift, that's never changed, even though there was a reduction by 2. I think one was an administrative role, and like the other was maybe also kind of like a split role, if I recall, maybe partially detective. But just in case, you know, folks are watching, I don't want to leave the impression that there are 2 less officers working
Right.
than prior contract, that the number has stayed the same. But to your point about the data and reporting, I think that's a good ask, because it's definitely made some improvements where we're seeing it. You know, it's helpful to see what does this data tell us, right? Because when I look at certain statistic, I used to wonder, well, is that good? Is it bad? Are we in the ballpark? But now I think we're starting to see trends, like they compare it to the past. I think that's one of the issues we run into as a city where we do have a contract like this, because sometimes you'll see like in the news, like a city that has their own local police department, I guess their data is collected differently, ours is kind of combined. So you'll see like, oh, some city is like rated, top safest in the state or whatever. But I think ours, we never really get that differentiation because we're intertwined with the whole county. So, yeah, if you can do something where you can get specific Wildwood data and, it's better to compare us with a local municipality as comparable to us. I think that would help. I think our data, from what I see and hear is good. It's just, how do we get an apples to apple comparison? So, thanks for that.
Mr. Mabry.
Yes, I don't mean to make the meeting as late as we can for Mr. Marshall, so he can all his content, but I've got another item that comes up.
Sure.
The police. I was gonna save it for just Mr. Lee, but I remarked to Mr. Vunich in passing that something's going on with the police that I've seen quite a ratcheting up of their presence overall.
Mhm.
There were 2 speed checks. I think one might have been on Clayton, I can't remember where. Then I drove behind officers on Orville Road, all the way from one end to the next, before I was able to stop them and talk to them a little while. And I said, is this gonna be a scheduled route for you, or are you just canvassing the area? He goes, no, it's just a general route. We've got 33 routes, or I think is what he said, I'm not sure. I said, well, I've seen 2 of you now rolling that I've been driving behind, and I had noticed them
Mhm.
for quite a while. So there's some sort of a message got to somewhere, and it's working.
Oh, good.
Safe speeds, safe streets.
Here we go.
Part of one of our major initiatives over the spring and summer.
I only had one quick question, and I'm assuming they're 2 different things because they're 2 different codes. One is tall grass and weeds, and one is tall grass and weeds over 1 acre. Is that because the over 1 acre is different?
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, I think it's a good start. I'm excited about it. It looks pretty nice. Anybody have anything else on the reporting they want to throw at us? Okay. That brings us to our municipal management software RFP.
Thank you, Chair. This is going back a little bit of time, but wanted to really iron out the kinks and see what we wanted the department, and along with the Department of Public Works, has played a pretty crucial role, and also Melanie with planning. Going through and figuring out with MyGov, we've had some hiccups. That said, overall for permitting, it works very well, as we've discussed. But back in April, we went ahead and presented to this committee and got permission to go out and solicit some bids. The idea is to have an open bid for about the next month. And we've invited multiple vendors that have contacted us and we've spoken with and seen demos. That said, the idea here is to kind of slowly wean off MyGov and go on to a potential, if MyGov's able to provide a proposal that really knocks the socks off, then they are obviously eligible as well. But that said, we're looking for someone to come in and really show us the tools to not only do permitting, work orders, requests from residents, but also take care of business licensing and doing pretty much a one-stop shop for everything that goes on in the city. So it's one system that everyone's being trained on versus having, 3 different systems that are working. That said, just wanted to give an update that's been published. It went out about 2 weeks ago, and we expect to have the bids open in time to have them ready to go at the next meeting. So we'll be reviewing proposals from different vendors at the next meeting, which we might wish to invite them for interviews or potentially just have them give a demo at that meeting with coordinating with the chair.
Yeah.
But overall, there's a few really good vendors out there. Put a report together with the RFP today, but if there's anything that that's missing in that RFP that you'd want the department to go after and discuss with anyone that's reaching out with questions, feel free to let us know. Trying to make it better.
Marshall.
Not to change the RFP, but as you talk to other cities and ask them information about these providers, do you have a ballpark in what you think the cost will be for this versus what we have now?
So right now it's similar. So it'd be less, it's around less than $50,000 per year. Right now, we're paying like 36,000 for MyGov. So in this case, if we were to go with something like Esri, which is a little bit more it's probably the best tool out there because that's who does GIS and that's who does all the interactive maps in the first place. That one is a little bit more difficult because you pay by the user and technically every resident would be considered a user. So that one gets up there. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we can't necessarily afford that. That said, there's a couple other software solutions that integrate the GIS data, so that master asset map that we showed in that meeting, you would almost be able to integrate the data we've uploaded there and show where our city maintained right of way is, and be able to drop it into whatever software. So when someone were to click a certain parcel that's on our road, it would immediately notify us. It would kind of give us a little extra context. So that said, probably around 50,000 per year at the top end, and then 30,000 on the low end.
So with the improvements in that, any savings from maybe integrating AI and not having as many people deal with it, to that you can kind of offset some of that to say, hey, look, we can do it with.
That is one of the critical features we're gonna be looking at within these proposals, is that without, dampening our current service provider, when asking the vendors, like, what is the plan for the future, the hope is that they're working on AI and trying to incorporate it into pretty much automating the system. These notifications to residents could be easily automated on the back end, which in some cases they are. That said, we've asked our vendor, their ideas with, current vendor, their ideas to utilize AI, and it hasn't been too superb. So the idea would be to have a vendor that comes in and says that's gonna be a major point of their model. There's a couple out there that are already looking at that.
Great, thank you.
Anybody have anything else? All right. Yeah, I'm excited to see what they have to do. Okay, that brings us to our 4 action items, and up first, we have an amendment to the Code of Ethics. So Ed, we got here just in time. Tom, do you want to take this one or do you want me to?
You take
Okay.
it off.
So this is a concept that, a number of us have been having conversations about for quite some time. Actually, I was thinking back to when I joined the council 6 years ago, we were having a similar conversation about some issues regarding this thing, and I just, for myself, I just think it's much easier in a lot of ways to get things locked in where it's not so much a guessing game. And so what I put together here is sort of a framework that should give us a little bit of a better idea of, when there is real issues and when there is not, and a very clear idea of if there is an issue, how do we speak to that or address to it or whatever it may be. So, these are things that are kind of happening in the city at the moment. I've had a number of conversations about it, even back on the Watershed Erosion Task Force, we've had questions because one of our members also happens to have a house that is caving into the creek. And so they have a very personal connect in what it is. And so one of the things that Mr. Lee and I have had conversations about with this is there's a difference between serving on a committee or doing something where it's a real deciding body. So, being on city council, being on P and Z, those are definitive decisions that can be adjusted versus more of an advisory thing. So on Watershed, we can suggest we'd like to do this, but somebody else has to do it. And so it's kind of putting clear lines in place with those, and then also spelling out for people how it works, because I remember when I got on, the conversation I had was pretty limited about, like, I don't know, if you feel like you have a conflict, maybe go with that. And while I think I also think that, different people have different thoughts. And so, the concept of this is not specifically directed at any one person or group or anything like that. It's trying to kind of solidify what we're doing. So it's not necessarily a new ordinance for the city. It's just adjusting the one that we already have. We did that. I can't remember what it was on. We did something on that.
2018-ish.
Yes. So anyways, that's sort of the concept. I'm sure Tom and I have left lots of time to have a conversation about this and some other things. So I will open the floor for anybody that would like to kick it off. Unless you want to add anything, Tom.
Overall, just what this policy is presenting, the only thing is we'll need to do one last check with the city attorney before we would pass the official amendment, just to change for the code change itself. But overall, it'd pretty much be taking the advocacy portion if there's a financial interest involved. That's the key that's being added here.
There we go. Mr. Marshall, you got anything you wanna add?
I do.
All
I
righty.
think I might be the only one here that's been brought up on the ethics board 4 times.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It's quite an honor, by the way. I guess the one I have is when it gets down to the financial interest, I think we need to make sure we go along with what the charter says as well. So the charter is really clear when you file your personal disclosure.
Mhm.
If you have any affiliation with any property that you own or any business that you own in order to do that. We as council members never see those.
Right.
They get filed with the state or whatever. So the bigger issue is they are public documents. But I think that's another one where if somebody, you're expecting people, because then Mayor Boland added that you did the financial review or whatever. But in that particular case, you already have one legal document that should override all the other ones, as much as we try to say, what interaction do you have or financial disclosure in order to do that? So my only comment was, you don't want it in 3 or 4 different places. So if we know we put it in a charter that's updated every 10 years, then I think we ought to make sure that what we're saying here isn't different without the fact that we'd have to change it again. We'd have to change the charter based on that. So that's one that I just think we need to keep in mind, that it's gotta fit in all the different buckets in order to do that.
Okay. Mr. Mabry.
Well, that just begat a question on my part, Mr. Marshall. Are we proposing to publish each elected official's financial disclosure as a document?
You don't have to, but it is a public document.
But someone's gotta know they've gotta go to the
I guess if you wanted bad enough, you'd.
Yeah, I mean, the idea with this is not really to publish those kinds of things. It's more, I mean, you know, we have a, as I said, this isn't directed at any one person or situation, but we've got a situation that has been quite a topic in the city in terms of like our chapter 100 and our Mr. Cohn, who's, you know, long served the city in a lot of different ways. And so, you know, the idea of understanding this is when this might become an issue is kind of what this is about. It's not about, you know, necessarily publishing anybody's financial interest. It's about saying, hey, you know that you have a financial interest in this, and because you now know that, and this is what we're saying, this is the process that you need to go through.
And these really aren't new. I mean, I go back to Lisa Wax when she and Marty were developing their property. Ted and Mary Ann Simmons, whenever that was on the agenda, they got up and left the building.
Right.
And they were completely out of it for any discussions. Now, the first time I got charged for the Board of Ethics was they said that I voted in a certain way for Lisa Wax. Well, I abstained from that vote to start with, but until they brought it up and they went back, and back then we had the tapes and everything to go back and do it. So this is new. We've had it that way. It's just how it's being handled. And then the bigger issue, I think, in all of these are, what can you do to enforce it? I mean, we had, I don't think Tom McLean, when he developed everything over here at across from the community college where the bank is, all of that development, he was on the planning and zoning.
Mhm.
And everybody threatened to take him off because he was treated differently and all that kind of stuff. Well, when he quit coming to the meetings, the council has no authority to take a P and Z person off.
Right.
And he refused to resign. And so we dealt with that throughout that cycle until he was off there. So these aren't new things popping up. They've always been there. And then you try to figure out what you can or can't do. We've had the situation with council members violating the stuff, but nobody, in my experience, has ever moved forward to try to remove a council member. The idea was just let them ride out their term and then somebody else will run for that. So a lot of these things aren't really new. They've just always been dealt with. And the more clarity, I think, is a good thing. I just think that if you're getting a disclosure here and you want to make sure that we're not setting up a parameter that's different in the dollar amount that you have to report and how that is, so that they both kind of sync up. I'm not sure how they enforce it. I guess we'll find out that with Mr. Page, but
Right.
how you can do that, so.
Mr. Albert.
Other than the individual you just stated, are we aware of anybody else that has a conflict with any of the committees right now?
I mean, not really. The closest one would be Greg Berger, who, you know, he's the Ward 5 representative on the Watershed Erosion Task Force, but as I said,
Okay,
you know, that's not a deciding body.
right.
I mean, we had a situation, I'm trying to remember, Mayor Garitano, that's when you were, when we had the council member that was taking the mailing list from the city and incorrectly doing some things with them. I mean, that was kind of, that's another one of these things where we started a conversation, but I think is to your point, Ed, like it's hard to kind of figure out where to go with it. And so this is designed to kind of try to put a little bit more framework in that. So like one of the things is, if we have a person who, has a conflict, as we're talking about, like if it was the guys across the way there, maybe the mechanism that we can say, which is sort of what it says in here, is like, we're gonna put these conversations about this thing on hold until, that puts the onus on that person then if they really want to do this thing to go, okay, well, then I will step down. Yeah, yes, Mr. Garitano.
Yeah, I mean, right now, the way that the ethics rules are written, it's very clear in that there has to be a financial conflict of $5,000 or more. And I would have to refer to the city attorney because I don't know if that only pertains to elected officials.
It's
or-
appointed.
Or appointed, okay, so like I said, for.
I mean, unless it changed, it's
But-
always been appointed
Yeah.
and city officers. So anybody working for the city as well as anybody appointed.
So I think that the mayor previously had attempted to try to tighten up some of the Board of Ethics rules beyond just the $5,000, clear, line that if you cross that, you have a financial impact. But I don't think he was able to at the time. I know that one of the issues that came up was, we had a council member who felt that they could vote on a matter that affected their spouse. There was conflict that appeared with that item there. So I think it just has to be very clear. I mean, I think if doing a cursory view, I know many of us are involved in groups or organizations where we're very passionate, we lobby, for road safety or things like that. I just want to make sure that the city attorney doesn't find anything that says that, you could be violating someone's First Amendment rights, to be able to speak on an issue or something like that. So I think that Thomas said that John would be looking at that and seeing where we could do something.
Yeah, so like the idea with this, as we've done a couple times, this is kind of a framework that I think is pretty good, but if there's things, like to your point, Ed, making sure it doesn't conflict with the charter, stuff like that. If there's any of those things that seem to stand out to anybody or whatever, we can kind of add that in and then John can take a look and.
Since we know we have to do that for the state, it just makes it easier to refer to it in the program that's what we have to go by because of the state overriding that. I do know, for an example, Tommy Kelp used to be on our Board of Ethics. We spent $500,000 with him on construction. I took him off. Everybody thought that was the worst thing I could ever do, but it's really not fair to have a contractor appointed to something and people were wanting to think, could I wear this shirt when I do my bicycle race or whatever? That wasn't the whole intent, but we've had those situations before where if they are somebody that's doing business with the city, there's a lot of things they can do other than set or be appointed to a board in order to do that. So that would be good things to look at.
I just have a clarification question.
Sure.
So under where it says resignation, officials with active financial, blah, blah, in matters before a decision-making body must resign, period, or to advocate or lobby, they must resign. And who decides if it's advocating or lobby? Does that mean if something's said, then that goes to the Board of Ethics? When someone says, hey, I think that person did this or that, then it gets referred to them? Or is it strictly saying that person has to resign? Or is only saying if they're gonna get up and rah-rah about it, then they have to resign?
I think that this is kind of one of those things where, to me, it's like, the letter of the law and the spirit of the law are a little bit in conflict. Like the concept should be, if you have legitimate business in front of the city, you should not be serving on a deciding board of anything. It's just a bad idea.
To me, that makes it kind of like
Yeah.
wishy-washy, like, well,
Like-
I didn't say anything about it, or I had someone speak for me on my behalf.
Right.
And you could say it's just laying out the facts and pros, maybe not pros and cons or whatever. So is that lobbying and advocating? Or if you don't, I don't know, I just want to make sure I understood that gray area.
I think, so one of the issues with the charter and the thing, so in the charter, it allows for recusal disqualification when a conflict exists, but does not require resignation from the body itself, only from participation in the matter. That's what the charter says. The proposed amendment would require resignation from the body before advocating on a matter where there's an active financial or organizational interest. If the charter is read as allowing continued service post recusal, mandatory resignation could be challenged as exceeding charter authority unless clearly framed as a code of conduct enforcement tool, not a challenge or not a change to the eligibility to hold office. So, I mean, that's how I would probably, I mean, what I'm seeing this saying is like, you know, I don't think that you're banning somebody forever or anything like that, but I mean, I guess it's the smell test thing.
It's hard to explain.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the challenge, is just trying to explain to other people
Right.
why it is what it is, because they have no idea the different commissions and boards and that kind of stuff. And quite honestly, it still comes down to the council. Well, then you can't do anything to the council members either. I
Right.
mean, anybody who's been in front of the Board of Ethics, it's they can recommend it, but the council is not gonna do anything.
Right.
So I mean, it just becomes kind of a vicious circle. So the clarity, I think, is the big issue, and knowing upfront what's expected. And a lot of this stuff, you know, we didn't always have it. We kind of fell into it and learned what you shouldn't do.
Mr. Vanek.
That paragraph you were just reading, it talked about organizational interest. Now, you know, obviously, I have this group on Facebook. I advocate for citizens for a safer old state. that can be
Right.
seen as an organization, I guess, you know. That's my concern is that putting me and my advocacy for my group in peril?
I mean, I would look at it, I would look at it this way, if, you know, and I will, Mayor Garitano, I'm gonna use you as an example, similar in a different way. So Joe has this great newsletter that he sends out, and everybody, many people in the city have it, and it's all good stuff. And so, you know, he talks about the city business, he talks about everything that's going on. He's not ever saying, from what I have read in it, as mayor, I am endorsing X, Y, and Z. It's just informational things. So what I would say for your group, you know, you can be a member of the group, you know, Ed's a member of the Lions and the Lions give us free hot dogs or whatever. I would assume if it ever came to a vote, because some other group wanted to give us or wanted to cook that free hot dog program, you know, Ed might go, well, I might have a conflict of interest here. I don't know. I love cooking these hot dogs. So I would say, like, for your specific instance, I don't think that I don't see it as that kind of an issue. But if you were to say, which, like, I started to see stuff not from us, from another city, a neighboring city, the last couple days on Nextdoor, people posting some pretty wild stuff. And it was just like, you know, if you happen to be on there and you're like, as the city council member, I'm not going to do anything else, period, until this thing happens, that would be bad. But if you are a member of the group or you founded the group, you know, I think in here it's like maybe hand over the admin thing for a while, because it's like, hey, I still advocate for this process, but I'm not doing the day-to-day stuff on this. I think that's kind of the same thing. So, you know, kind of looping back around to, you know, whether it's this chapter 100 discussion or any of these other development things, like, you know, at the end of the day, it's very difficult, you know, even when we have votes on the council, I mean, we all have different opinions, but we're all very friendly with one another. But sometimes when you are voting against something you know is very important to another council member, that's a difficult thing to do. And I think sometimes when you have people that are sitting on boards, it's a difficult thing to go, hey, I appreciate that you're not saying anything here, but you're still sitting next to me. And I know, like, you're not doing this in the room. So that's kind of where that conversation comes from. But, you know, like a lot of these things, I mean, Ed is right. The enforcement mechanisms for almost everything we do is relatively toothless. So it's kind of best behavior, I think, is the way I would look at it. Yes,
So here's another area where I just think we have to be aware, because if you put these caveats in here, where if it's a group that you're supported or a group that, so like the Historic Society or Pond Ballpark, if you in turn belong there or are part of that, then you're supposed to abstain from a vote on that. We could get to approve a budget and not have enough votes to get the bad budget through, because if you can't vote for that Parks and Planning program or for the pond thing, then you don't have enough council members to vote it for. So we've been down this road before to think, okay, well, if you can't vote on something because your organization is going to get something out of it, then you know, you need to figure out how do you work around that. So I mean, just other things I think, because we've been there and done this so many times. There's nothing new here. It's just a different gyration of, well, I guess the big tax incentive thing is different.
Right.
But we've never had anything like that where it created that kind of a controversy. And yeah, we have had a lot of Board of Ethics questions and turn them over to the state for the Board of Ethics. And the state says, no, there's nothing to that. You just have crazy residents there, so.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I think that it's always good to tighten up things. I think the main concern I would have is don't make it too broad because then it could be interpreted any way. Right? Like if you say, and just to use an example, the hot dogs, and I thought of that like that. I mean, the Lions do this service and I believe get some compensation.
You get $500.
But Mr. Marshall does not get any compensation directly because of cooking the hot dogs. All he does is cook hot dogs and smile and talk to people.
Well, because we had another vendor who did it for the city and he wouldn't do it anymore.
So
We were kind of the fallback people that said, okay, we can do that. But I will say this, one of the Board of Ethics charges that were brought up back when we did the barbecue bash was the Lions and the Rotary Club, because we sold beer, then we were turned over, but the issue was the city did not have a contract with us, so they turned it and said there's nothing to that. Now, that didn't keep our local Board of Ethics trying to take people off saying that you voted for the barbecue bash. It was in the planning budget for the whole city, and so it was voted for. But then, the people would come in and make the complaints and the IRS, all this stuff, just a real drag on people. No one made any personal money out of it, but it was a big fundraiser for that, no different than with Pond and that kind of stuff. So I think part of it is you just gotta make sure that it's clear enough and who's involved in it. It's not like you're making a personal check out to an individual.
Right.
It's going to a charity or an organization or
I'm
whatever.
very specific because I mean, like the spirit of what we do as elected officials is we're there to represent our community. And so you don't want to have officials now concerned that they shouldn't vote on it because maybe it's a vote to put a sign at the end of the street, a stop sign. I mean, they're not benefiting, they're doing it for the spirit of, making their community and representing their community. But, you can really, if it's too broad, all of a sudden somebody could start making an accusation. And we actually saw it years ago, or Miss Deborah McCutcheon, she was advocating for a gate at the end of a road, and we had, two former mayors back make an accusation in the middle of the meeting that she was benefiting from it. And so, it has to be very narrowly defined so it's crystal clear, because otherwise it could really spin out of control. And I do think the financial piece is one way to look at it. Like, do you directly benefit by this vote or not? And so the city attorney probably, if they get the feedback from this group, they will do that. And one other thing too, I think a really good thing that was implemented a couple of years back, because we went through a period of a lot of frivolous complaints that were being filed. In fact, there was a total done that the city attorney had spent almost $40,000 in taxpayer dollars reviewing frivolous complaints. And prior to this change I'm about to talk about, they would always go to the Board of Ethics. And so imagine just the exhaustion that the Board of Ethics had to go through. So the former mayor, I think with the council's approval, implemented a change where they would go to our special prosecutor, who would review the complaint to see if it was legit, if it actually had merit. And if it didn't, then it would not go any further.
And then he could send a letter back saying your claim has no merit to it. And then we
Exactly.
didn't have to bring all of the volunteers in for the Board of Ethics. We do have a special prosecutor just for that,
Yeah, so I
So
think
it's
that's a
not-
good thing.
tying it up on there. And he's pretty good at knowing exactly has a claim, what doesn't have a claim.
And it's good as he stays, independent enough because he's not the functioning city attorney whose job is to help keep us out of trouble.
And it really wouldn't be a bad idea as you progress into this further, is to sit down with him and get some feedback as to all of the crap that has gone there.
Yeah.
How could we change the wording some? Because it's hard to get somebody to serve on the Board of Ethics anymore because some of them got beaten down pretty bad.
Right.
So, in that particular case, it might be a good suggestion to at least review how many we've had in the last few years and what were they about.
Yeah. Like our code thing. Mr. Vanek.
Just one more thing that I could foresee a problem specifically for me is that improvements to Old State. You could view it as increasing my property value since I live off Old State. You know?
Yeah,
And you know where I'm going with this, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I mean, it's a little bit like what Mayor Garitano was talking about with
Yeah.
Deb's thing, like, while technically, I guess that could improve your property value, that is not, like,
That's
to
not
me, it
nice.
would be, if you were advocating for a roundabout on Old State Road that you owned a construction company for
Yeah,
and were
there
going
you
to
go.
build,
Obvious.
that's this. The fact that you live off of a road that might need to have an improvement and therefore your property value could go up slightly, that is not what this is.
That's why we're blessed to have 16 council people.
Right.
You can say just vote no or abstain and everything else goes on. One other one that did come up, and this, Jason, this is just for you. School board members and teachers for Rockwood, that for years, the council members who had a teacher in their family was why I can't vote on this because my wife works for Rockwood School District. And they largely said, no, it has no, your judgment as a council member has no purview over the teaching roles at the school board. So a lot of those type of things, I think, just kind of get worked out over the past. But to have people feel that they can't vote for what's right for the city because of that interest, it'd be pretty narrow.
So, so I dropped the charter in and, you know, here are some of the suggestions it's offering, and we can like these or not, doesn't really matter. But when it talks about narrowing, like organizational things, obviously direct money is pretty clear. But it is, serving in a governing or paid role such as officer, director, managing committee chair, or employee for an organization that is currently seeking a contract, permit, license, grant, or other discretionary approval from the city or receiving such a benefit from the city. Ordinary membership, unpaid volunteer service, or involvement in organizations whose interactions with the city is as a member of the general public do not constitute any type of concerning interest, is what it says. So I mean, my thing is like, I think if you're not the president of the Pond Athletic Association, I don't know that that matters. That's how I'm reading it anyways. I think if you are, you know, cause I had a similar thing where when I was thinking about the watershed erosion thing, like I would advocate for help with the watershed because I know things, but then as an elected official, we're not really supposed to advocate for things. So then, you know, that turns to the question of like, well, me personally, I would do it as a city council member. I'm not saying one way or the other, but
Well, I'll do the same thing though with the Lions Club. We come in and buy a liquor license. I'm a member. So in that particular case, we don't really vote on anything. We file the papers and get our liquor license. But because you are a member, you know, how do you do? I mean, it's on one point, you had like 5 or 6 members on the council years ago. But how do you treat those type of situations or historic preservation? Any place where you have that interaction that becomes a required document like a license. Then do you just, not that we vote on license, but do you just, and I don't apply for the license, but I mean, it's just another, I know that I belong to the organization.
Well, and I would almost say with the licensing item, that those are treated with a separate set of criteria to it. I think that would be a separate concern, but it wouldn't be an issue. I don't believe, because I'm.
Just curious, but when you say licensing, then you kind of, Pond has the same
That's-
challenge if they have to get a liquor license.
It's a good point.
And if you belong to that organization, Pond Athletic, then you're part of that. Not that we vote on it, because we as council members don't vote on it.
I mean, this thing, the suggestion it keeps coming back with is if you have a direct personal financial benefit, which as a member, I mean, you're volunteering, you don't get paid to be a Lion.
No.
You don't get paid to make all of our hot dogs. So I don't know that there is a direct personal benefit to you. I would say the same thing for even Pond Athletic. I'm trying to remember, I think, wasn't Dan Flasher on that or something? He was
Yeah.
on something. But you know, he's not like being compensated to
Well,
do it.
but then used to, we donated quite a bit of money to Pond.
We did.
And so in that particular case, that was
Still
always
do.
a questionable thing. So I don't know. I just think that's one of those where you want to be sure you try to narrow it down, but you also don't want to end up blowing up in your face.
Well, let's, let me run this thing one more time and then we'll talk through the other conflicts and we'll see if anything comes up. Now I know you gotta get out of here. Did you wanna talk about the other stuff, Ed?
I was just a little bit more concerned about the discretionary tax incentive and to see if you could help my own mind back in 2006 or 7. The first one we put in, was that for the sewer system? Or for town center?
The first one we did was for the sewer system. It was a NID. And then we did the town center.
And so those two happened when I was there and I couldn't figure out what they were, but they were the two that I had.
Yeah, and
experience on.
the NID was created by petition from the petitioner side, and then the SID, that was more of a development agreement with the city. They were coming to us at Coleman Properties and the other interest groups were saying, hey, we want the garage, we want to have the fountain, et cetera. So in that case, it was definitely the NID first. I believe it was like 2000.
And that was just financing for us to finance it so that they had to pay it back.
Yep.
in
So
order-
really, it was to serve for the SID anyways, and the NID actually. The NID was to serve as a mechanism for the initial investment to run the sewer down.
Just had to get all the residents to sign off on it.
Yep.
And they had to pay every year in order to do it. Yeah.
And then the SID is just for the garage, the same thing, taking out a loan in the name of the government, getting a better interest rate, but then them paying them back and the city being kind of the collector, if you will, each year.
So in the fine notes of that, it did mention the fact that subdivisions couldn't do it. Did I read that correctly? For example, I know in Clayton, for example, when they came in and wanted to put new granite curbs in, they did a NID and all the homeowners had to pay for that. I was just curious, and I didn't live there, I just happened to know that
Yeah.
that's what they did. So when you say something like that, where a subdivision or a certain neighborhood wants to do something, is that restricted in our direction?
I personally don't believe it would be,
Yeah,
but I think
no.
that would need to be struck out because that could. Right now, there's a state right as a group of residents, impacted property owners to petition the city government, say they wanted to do something like that. It's obviously the end of the day, it's the city council's decision to put it on the ballot or not. That said, they should have the right still to make the request, and that's usually gonna be a NID.
Yeah, I was just curious.
That said, you'd probably wanna strike out like a neighborhood and just maybe make it like, once again, maybe tie it to, more so a private corporation entity trying to profit off it instead of making a public good. So I think that, I think an argument can be made for the SID too, that that was more of a public good that's going in as a large parking garage.
But let's do this real quick, just to kind of keep the meeting going. So according to the run I just did, there are 6 possible conflicts between the charter and the ethics policy. I will read them very quickly, and if anybody else has anything else, we can add them to the list, but then we can, keep the conversation. We got the framework going, we'll keep the conversation moving. So there's the resignation versus recusal, which means the charter allows officials to remain in office and simply recuse from matters where they have a substantial or private interest. Our proposed amendment requires resignation from the decision-making body before advocating. This could be seen as creating a new qualification to hold office, which the charter controls. The solution: make resignation optional, tied to the choice to actively advocate. An official who wishes to advocate for a matter in which they have a conflict may only do so in a personal capacity after resigning from the decision-making body consistent with the charter provisions. That's the fix that it's suggesting. Automatic enforcement penalties. Charter specifies due process for forfeiture or removal from office and disciplinary measures. Proposed amendment applies automatic penalties, loss of chair, removal from committees, project denial. This could be challenged by bypassing charter mandated removal or discipline process. Solution: change automatic to automatic referral for action under the charter with a clear due process path. So that would basically go to, I guess, probably the ethics board. I assume they would handle that, right, Ed?
I'm not sure.
Okay, we'll figure that out. Appointment eligibility restrictions. Charter grants mayor or council broad appointment power to boards and commissions. Proposed amendment creates hard bans on appointing people with active conflicts. This could be seen as limiting charter granted discretion. Reframe as a council policy standard rather than a legal prohibition. It is the policy of the city to avoid appointing individuals with active conflicts unless the council by majority vote determines safeguards are in place to prevent any issues. We can do that. Advocacy restrictions and use of title. Charter does not address advocacy restrictions outside of formal proceedings. Proposed amendment restricts use of title, city resources, and certain communication platforms. This would be something that the current county executive maybe would want to think about. Not a direct conflict, but over broad restrictions could unintentionally limit lawful speech rights if they don't have a clear nexus to city business. Keep restrictions limited to keep restrictions limited to situations where advocacy creates an actual or apparent conflict of interest under the charter's definitions. Broad organizational interest scope, currently too broad, could pull in incidental or non-governing roles. Just narrow it, basically. Enforcement overlap and ethics board. Charter empowers the ethics board and sets expectations for how violations are handled. Proposed amendment adds direct council enforcement actions without always routing through the ethics board. This could be read as bypassing or duplicating charter mandated review processes. Require that significant sanctions, removal from office, project denial, forfeiture, et cetera, follow a finding or recommendation from the ethics board or applicable charter process. Those are those suggestions.
So the only question I have is we keep saying removal from office. I don't think we by law can remove a council member or a planning and zoning person. They have to resign.
Okay.
It's what I've always been told under the state constitution or whatever, that an elected person or, and then the planning and zoning falls under appointed for that. They cannot be taken out for whatever reason supposedly. So in the past, that's always been, and that'd be a good one to check legally to see if it's true or not, but we had that situation with planning and zoning, and a couple times I think they tried it on council. And there's not much you can do for an elected.
Even if there's a direct violation of
Unless they would lie on disclosure. So for example, if they didn't disclose they had financial interest in something, then at that particular point, they could brought up charges under
So-
malfeasance.
This is what this says. I don't know if it's right. I'm not aware, but according to RSMO 77.340 and 79.240, the mayor with a majority vote of the city council may remove any elected city official, including a council member, for cause shown after giving the officer an opportunity to be heard before the council, acting as an impeachment body. Alternatively, the council itself can remove an elected official by an elected officer by a 2/3 majority vote with or without the mayor's support, also after a hearing process. Typically, such removal involves an order to show cause, opportunity for defense, and vote of council. Per RSMO 89.320 and typically other city ordinances, the city council may remove any citizen appointed member for cause only after written statement of the cause and a public hearing. Many Missouri municipalities codify local rules specifying removal grounds such as multiple unexcused absences and require the same public hearing process. Unlike elected officials, appointed commissioners cannot be removed by vote alone. Cause and due process are required.
So the one that we dealt with before, attendance was always an issue. If he'd accidentally missed a meeting, we could have taken him out, but he came to that meeting and then he wouldn't, it's like 1 out of 3 or something. So we were never able to do anything, and he kind of worked out his year. Just refusing to resign. And that was a planning and zoning, that wasn't a council.
I mean, yeah, I think, I mean, obviously we should have a policy in place. My hope would be that you wouldn't have to get this far down the road. I mean, it just seems crazy.
And it's nothing but a waste of time, and just everybody's feelings get hurt. And
Yeah.
it's just sad to think it gets carried that far, but we've had it
Yeah.
before, so you just kind of learn from the history. Sorry,
Oh, that's okay.
you're all welcome to come in for electronic signs, electronic message
And
boards, and drive-throughs.
So as we do this ethics thing, does anybody have any other thoughts or concerns or questions we can add to the list? If not, we will pass those to our next group of folks, our ethics guy, our special prosecutor per se, and your city attorney. Yes, sir.
Sure.
Hmm?
At the very beginning of what you thought was the first version, since I thought I heard any paid position such as, then you read them, did you say any paid position? Something different that you were, would it be any paid position such as the council or this or the appointment or the, I don't know, paid as opposed to appointed volunteer?
So I think the biggest concern would be, and this does not, I can't imagine that this would ever be a thing that would happen in our city, but like, the idea would be, you know, if Cliff was all of a sudden going to become the director of parks and planning and take a paid role with the city, that would create a conflict for him, but
But he couldn't be a council member any longer.
right, well, you can't, I mean, you can't even do it, I think it's like a 3-year thing, right? You can't.
Yeah.
do anything like.
Cooling off.
Yeah, yes, you can't immediately go over to the paid side, but that said, technically, code enforcement are not paid how much they're technically paid by the city.
That's true, I guess, we are.
So that's the difference, that's not the qualifier, I think it's like actual employment.
Yes,
There's like there's a difference between employment and being paid as an elected official as compensation for the service.
so the idea would be, like, we get paid a
Yeah.
couple $100 or whatever it is, but we're not, I mean, we're not technically employees. We don't get employment benefits or any of those other things from the
I
city.
get a W-2.
You do get a W, there's a I can come back with the answer, but there is a difference between like there's a difference between Rick, Amy, myself, and it's a coding for the IRS.
Tracy, you had something or no?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so we've got a list of some things. I will get them over to Tom and we'll keep that conversation running. That brings us to our tax policy, our tax incentive policy framework. And this is another piece that I wrote. I actually wrote it for the Economic Development Committee. But I thought since we're probably gonna have this conversation here in a week or so, it might be better to have it in a smaller group now rather than a much larger, long drawn out thing then. So basically what this does is it creates a framework like we've done for a lot of other things lately that just say, you know, when a tax incentive might be considered, what we think that tax incentive might want to look like, all of those kinds of things. And the idea would be, or my concept was, if we have a framework in place that we know what it is, then we can determine as a group, do we want to use these tools, yes or no? If the answer is yes, then do whatever projects that come to us meet these requirements, and if they do, great. So this is kind of trying to make the conversation about the process and the proposal, not the person, if that makes sense. And I'm happy to get into some more details on it if you guys want me to, but I don't want to eat up a bunch of time if you have some thoughts.
I reviewed it and I didn't see anything about when the request should be submitted, yeah. And I think that's important,
Yeah.
you know. Did I miss something?
No, so that's kind of one of the, you didn't, and that's kind of one of the other issues that we run into, that Mr. Marshall, I'm sure would have probably talked about too. So a lot of the times when we're dealing with, I would say, larger scale development stuff, or even smaller scale stuff, like I personally feel like our process is a lot of times like kind of backwards, because we don't, like, we're voting on a concept of something, not like this, you know, do we want to have houses here? Sure. How many houses? We'll figure it out. What do they look like? We'll also figure that out later. And so I think that those kinds of questions will be kind of the next phase of this, which is like, here's how this like process should play out. My suggestion just in general would be, you know, if a development is going to apply for something like this, they should ask as early as possible, as soon as these kind of answers can come into place. Because if you don't, then we wind up in a situation where, which we're in, which is we already have an approved project. And now we got to figure out if we want to, I guess, reapprove it or whatever we want to call it. And so again, while we do have an issue that is happening right now, this is designed based on what Ed's talking about. Like, we've kind of learned a lesson here that we want to try to move forward with. And if the chapter 100 is granted, the expectation would be more people will ask for them. So we want to put a framework, a pretty clear framework in place. And so the idea with this is, with some of our things we've done before, is to basically break projects into tiers. So a tier 1 project, it checks a lot of boxes. That's kind of not a rubber stamp necessarily, but it's the idea of, hey, this seems to really apply very broadly. Tier 2 meets some, but there's some questions that we got to answer. And then tier 3, it's like, these don't really meet anything. So while we certainly can have the conversation, the odds of anything happening are very slim. But we can also change those things around, or the parts that are inside of it. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question. And I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with the amount, but where did we come up with, like, under incentive caps, delivering a minimum projected public return of $5 million over a 10-year period, which that's a great number. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I just wondered how we determined, and there's somewhere else where it said about if it was gonna involve 20 jobs or whatever. I just wondered where we, just so someday
So-
we could say, this is how we came
The
up.
the best way to explain is I went through this thing and I tried to figure out like what are the best practices and what are the things that make sense. So if we're gonna grant a tax incentive to some commercial property, which in our city we're probably not ever going to have. But if we did, you would wanna kind of balance this out where it would make sense to do, this is the sort of the repayment back on that. So I think for the dollar amounts, like it's like if you have a multi-use property, we don't wanna have one that's getting this massive benefit and is returning back to the city, some very insignificant amount of money. We wanna try to get it as verified as possible. So we can make alterations to those. Those are just kind of the national best practices. Mr. Albers, you got something?
No.
Mr. Bachert? You always have insightful things on items like this?
I'm good. I think it makes sense. And probably worth, to your point, kind of clarification, because as we move forward, once you do it one time, guess what's gonna happen? You're gonna do it a second and a third. So the better kind of outline you have, the better will be.
Yeah, and I mean, the only, having written the policy, the only question that I kind of had that I wanted to put to the group is most of this is, like one of the criteria is town center activation, because that's kind of this is our primary hub of activity. But we do have a small strip of like industrial space down in the valley, which is currently a farm, basically. We had a couple years ago, I know we had a group that wanted to build like a pretty significant warehouse facility in there, and they wound up going somewhere else. So, I mean, my assumption would be if something like that came back around, it might make sense that somebody would request a tax incentive to do something like that. That being said, the fact that it isn't in town center is just kind of like one box it doesn't check. So it's not saying you can't have it anywhere else. It's just saying, I didn't know if we wanted to include something like that somewhere else, because
That strikes me as more than a single percentage of our residents would say, not only is it just not check off one box, it's a clear violation because it's so geographically far and it's so philosophically different. A farm is not town center.
Right.
So there would be a qualifier that it must meet 3 of the 6 boxes, or provide a as of yet undefined quality that we haven't gone and spent years researching on AI. And that kind of shuts them up because we can't think of everything under the sun.
Right.
And we didn't say it had to be in town center and only in town center. And that checking that one box wouldn't have automatically eliminated it from contention in another area where there weren't already subdivisions. So I'm rambling on.
All right.
But-
Yes, sir.
But then the farming area, that still would affect all the tax entities the same as it would in.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the question is,
I mean-
do we want to include, because I mean, how big is our industrial area is like not big.
It's,
I know that.
it's almost 250 acres.
So it's a very specific, like my question is, would it make sense to put a piece of criteria in here that says it also might be down there? I'm not that they would do this, but that giant production facility they built down in Chesterfield, like that wouldn't have been a bad thing to have in our little industrial part of
I think you should add, because there's been other interests. Weren't they talking about like an animal testing center there? Remember, like monkeys? or something? Did I
There
make
was,
that up?
there was a, no, it's not, you're not crazy. That was a floater from the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership.
But I'm
They were
saying-
collecting
Yeah,
spaces.
leaving down there, and more things are getting built along there. And I mean, it could be another sports facility. I think they've got everything they can have by now, but I mean, we wouldn't want them
Chicken
not
and
to look
pickle,
at that.
I think we could just tie this off by having it. It's gotta be in town center or in the industrial.
Yeah, so change number 1 to town center or
Right.
industrial area activation.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's where you want to bring your.
so we can make that change. Any other
Town center.
thoughts or concerns. One of the things that is sort of in here, or a thought process is like just based on the process that we've gone through so far with the chapter 100, there are cities that granted chapter 100s, but those chapter 100s were only for sales tax during the construction period and none of the other stuff. And at least based on what I was looking through, it sort of seems like that's because they were collecting city taxes that would have been pretty dramatically affected, so they just didn't apply those. I guess we might wanna look and see if that is, while we don't take a city tax, that might be a direction that we wanna look at that says, hey, this is what it is. The biggest question I've gotten from a lot of people is, if we are voting to take money away from other taxing entities, which is we have the ability to do it. But the question is that something that we want to do? And all of our other surrounding municipalities are doing this. And so we also don't want to take a tool out of our toolbox that says, well, no, we just don't want to. So that would change some of the numbers in here versus a return, because then you don't need to make $5 million back. Yes, sir.
In changing it from town center and adding the small acreage called industrial in the valley. That's 2 areas now.
Mhm.
What about the Arnold Palmer 18-hole golf course that someone comes and proposes a mile or so from Hollow?
It would technically, the way it's written right now, it would technically need there's currently a procedures for the review and processing, and this would be going in and amending those procedures. So what you would be saying here is if that request came in, if we just abided by our ordinance, then it would be an automatic denial if it was outside of the town center zoning classification, workplace district or.
Do more than 50%
Well,
of
it's
the
not
residents?
necessarily an automatic denial. It just doesn't affect that process.
The way this is written is though, is that it's all about consideration, but maybe we could change that word verbiage to say these are more of this is added and it's almost like a criteria for favorable consideration. That makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say like public benefit criteria, so it's gotta meet 3 of those. So town center activation is 1 of 6, town center or industrial is 1 of 6. So if they wanted to do that, the answer would be, it doesn't meet that. But it might check the infill development, or it might check the sales tax usage, or it might check the job creation.
But by identifying a quantity, specific quantity and specific location, you're giving the impression that you've thought of all the other places and you've decided against them because these only 2 won. That's, I'm just thinking of someone who would have some teeth in a lawsuit that they weren't given an ice because they proposed something that wasn't in the industrial area or town center.
Most has
It was
nothing
for
to do
other
with
points besides, it was for other points than that, but they're gonna be pointing to that as yeah, you and your silly pointing check off boxes.
But it's not saying they couldn't build it, they're just not gonna get a tax break for it.
Yes.
It's a valid point.
I mean, all this is for is
I
just the
know.
tax breaks. So people can build, if they're zoned to build, they can build, I'm not saying that they will, but they theoretically could build anything they want anywhere, assuming it meets approval. This is just specific to them going, hey, we would like to have a tax incentive to do this. So what this is saying is, from a city standpoint, one of our primary criteria is it's gotta either be in town center or in the industrial area, which we wanna activate.
The fact that the city is giving away an opportunity to make all the benefits that would come from having this golf course. That wouldn't be worth trying to build in conditions that steer that type of development elsewhere besides just town center and the valley. I'm really.
I would-
An 18-hole golf course by some reputable, well-known designer out there, that'd be a counting coup. There'd be families naming their kids after that golf course that got here in
Yeah,
Wildwood.
but I would say if we were gonna do that, it would have to be, I mean, if you're gonna give a tax benefit to that, it would probably have to be a public course, which would then become a whole different situation, because now you're talking about a public use, they're putting in a public use component, but now you're like, this is an addition, like, if if somebody wants to come build some award-winning golf course and it is a public course in the city of Wildwood, that to me is like a whole different kind of a conversation. That's like adding in a level of a different park. That's not what this is talking about. Those guys are not gonna come here and go, hey, we'll build a course here if you give us $4 million to do it.
This is really a funnel for tax breaks is what it amounts to.
Yeah.
It's a funnel to say, does it make sense? And if it does, it gets to here. It's not really a funnel for what you're describing.
Well, a name brand 18-hole golf course where you have to go X dozen miles east to find any. I would consider that a real cherry to pick for the city of Wildwood. You'd have people from halfway to those golf courses east, and I think there's one down in Eureka. They'd be coming out here by the droves and throwing money in our city.
But that's then becomes, it's not, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, so this is not
Doesn't
saying.
Include that from
Yeah,
happening.
this isn't saying that can't happen. This is saying if they came here and they wanted a chapter 100, I would say
It has
that.
to go through this funnel and.
Yep, and
check
that to
those
me
boxes.
sounds like a tier 2 project, which
Yes.
means now the city council is going to have a conversation about is there a greater public benefit in doing this than not? It's not a like,
All or nothing.
yeah, it's not like this is, I wanna build a bunch of warehouses, across the street here. And I'd like you to give me $5 million to do it. That would be a tier 3, because it doesn't meet any really of the requirements that we're talking about.
It sounds like you've got the conditions that there's enough avenues for relief.
Yeah, I mean, basically what this should do is this should help developers, whomever they are, understand, like, if I'm gonna approach the city looking for some type of a development incentive, I need to be within this sort of general vicinity. It's not just, hey, I'd like free money too to go build this thing. That's what we're trying to curtail. We're also trying to make sure that we understand, like, if we're going to grant a tax benefit, like we had a lot of conversation about, we have 2 adjoining cities. One did the Mila project, which is an apartment complex in Ellisville. They got a chapter 100. The other did an Aldi's, which got a chapter 100. And
Eureka.
in Eureka. And so
Eureka, yeah.
both of those are taking tax money from places, but in reality, only one is possibly adding expense, that being a residential facility. So, like, in my heart of hearts, I think in general, I think this chapter 100 thing is sort of a silly thing that the state came up with. I used to work in development for a long time. Like, this is a ask and you shall receive situation. And so what we wanna try to do is say, hey, we wanna work with people, we wanna work with them in this way, assuming that we like what this says. And then these are the processes that go on, and it doesn't become a matter of, do you like, the guy came in and talked to us and he was wearing a green shirt and I didn't like it, and therefore I'm going to turn this down. It's does this check these boxes? And if so, let's have a conversation about the merits of the project, not the specific situation that we're dealing with. But we can change the numbers. I mean, Tom and I had some conversation about looking at those numbers a little bit more firmly, right?
Yeah, the fiscal impact was the one that I was focusing in on, just because there's certain projects like it would need to be a very big project to return 2.5, since we don't have a property tax. If we had a property tax, it'd be very realistic. That said, without the property tax, we're really basing it off a best estimate based off how many people it's adding, potential sales, and then the utility tax. That's really where the bread and butter is. And if you can calculate, which is difficult to do, the impact on our net population in 2030. But if they propose it in 2031, then technically that impacts null and void for another 10 years at least.
Is this chapter 100 kind of replace what was happening 5-10 years ago, the TIF tax, thing?
Kind of is, I mean, it's just another one of those tools. It's a similar thing.
The mayor, I think the guy in Ellisville lost his mayorship because of, he wanted to put that super Walmart in there, and they started almost evicting people out of that apartment complex and everything. And,
Right.
but It just seems like it's kind of a long, it's probably a different process, but it's another tax incentive or break type of thing, so.
And the other thing, yes, I mean, it's just, it's one of those, so the other thing that I liked about this, which kind of answers some of the questions and concerns that I've heard over the last couple of months is all applicants seeking a discretionary incentive shall submit a project pro forma for independent third-party financial review paid for by the applicant. This review is required to verify that the incentive is necessary for project viability and must produce a summary finding for council without disclosing proprietary financial details. So this, in theory, obviously the numbers we're working with are kind of probably skewed anyways. But the idea is, like, the question becomes, if I don't get this, I can't build it, versus if I don't get this, I make less money. And we, as a governing body, I think, need to consider those two options because they're
See,
kind of
I don't understand why for project viability, you know, why the citizens or the taxpayers of for the Rockwood School District, why should they be on the hook because somebody doesn't want to go back and get adequate financing?
I
I
don't,
mean, you know what I'm saying here?
Typically where it comes from is that in some areas, and the argument is that in Wildwood, it's just you can't, the bank will not provide that enough financing. And the other thing is, sometimes it really depends. The question that the council, the elected officials that would view this has to ask themselves, do they want this development here? If yes, okay, well then trying to get to the bottom line of, are they making a profit with or without the incentive? That said, if the project's not wanted at all in the first place, then that's a pretty easy decision, then they shouldn't be getting an incentive. That said, if it's something that we want as a city, I mean, technically it's gonna produce more money for the county in the future, but there is gonna be a short-term period of pain.
and I mean, the question is, like, I would look at it with the situation that we're dealing with right now. So, you know, at this moment, there is sort of this, and we see this with our road projects and stuff, where everything just costs a whole lot more money. That is a reality of today's world. That may not be the reality in, you know, 3 or 5 years or whenever the next thing comes. And so the question becomes, you know, in my experience, a project is not going to get a loan based on the fact that you might get a tax incentive. That's not usually how this works. And so the idea with this is to say, you know, we're deferring a certain amount of money for this period of time. That's why I think some of these other municipalities have said, hey, we're willing to partner here. We want to get this thing going. We're willing to partner, so we're gonna defer the sales tax, which is, it does kind of broadly affect everybody, but we're not going to go in and go, also this for the next 5 or 10 or whatever, however many years. And so, to me, the framework that we are kind of looking to set up here is to say to developers, like, a chapter 100, if you apply for a chapter 100 in the city of Wildwood, it means you have to meet these criteria and this is what you are, this is the option. There isn't a thing, cause I'm a big believer, as I think many people are, like, you don't get what you don't ask for.
Oh, sure.
So you might as well ask for the world. You don't know, you know, so everybody might go, yeah, let's do that. But I think for me and for this process, I think it's important to go, hey, this is what we're talking about. So if your project, for instance, if your project is not viable without a 10-year tax break, it's probably, as much as we might like to have it and it might help us in some way, it might not be the best fit for us, and come back when it becomes more viable, if that's what it is. That's kind of what this is meant to be. And it also helps too, because, you know, I've personally, I guess I'm by far, well, Tracy's close. I'm way the longest serving person around here in this room currently. But like, it's always strange to me, and I think we ran into this with the folks with McBride that wanted to put a thing in over here. Like, these timeframes get really weird. So there's sort of a reshuffling of paperwork that happens. And it always reminds me of that scene in Casino when they're like, you just change your title and then we take it off the top of the thing and we put it down at the bottom. And so like, this is like, you have to have real things happening in a period of time for this tax incentive to kick in. You don't get to get it and then sit around for 5 years and then all of a sudden build it. You gotta have real things happening in real time or we're taking it back. that's kind of how this should work.
And you can have that in the, any agreement
Yep.
with them, by the way, you can have that clearly state that if you don't, and the way you do it is you do it by, okay, you have to pull permits by this date and you have to start grading by this date, you gotta go vertical by this date, you need reoccupancy by this date. If you enforce those, I mean, it's easy, if you have that in development and performance agreement, you can make it where it's an automatic trigger if they don't meet that deadline and then pretty much submit to the city a substantial completion form of whatever it is, then the city can go out there and say, okay, you didn't have it, and then that nullifies the contract overnight. So that is actually a slight good thing, you have a little bit of control, because then you can kind of be a project manager to them. And just for a financial indicator, I did want to note that the Melee had 227 units and it was approved back in 2021, the one that's down the street in Ellisville. Just for a financial comparison, it was $30 million when they got that approved, and that's how much they paid to build that. It's 227 units. The project that's being proposed here is approximately 52.5 million, and it's 189 units with retail on the first floor. So the retail is actually it makes less money. So that's where I think they're trying to make an argument that the costs are going up to an extent where people can't afford it. And I guess the question is, do we want it or not? Or is the developer making additional money? That is a question.
Just curious with this project here. Do we have any of those performance?
For the profit margin or for the?
No, the building.
Buildings.
Things.
We do, and that'll be on the agenda at the next meeting, and specifically tying it to when do they pull permits, and we can I'll have that in a executive summary sheet. But it'll have when they pull permits, when they actually start grading, when they go vertical on their build, and then also when they pull the occupancy permit at the end of the day. We could actually add in more too.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at this is I think this framework should be kind of like a minimum, like this is the
Sure.
basic thing.
Yeah.
But I think from a project by project thing, we probably need to get like real in the weeds of like, yeah, this is the very minimum threshold that you have to hit. But there's a lot more things that go on, because I mean, you know, we struggled, even with this reserve that is now just happening. I mean, that has been going for like 10 years or something. I mean, it's crazy. It's gone through 6 different builders and
It
everything
was
else.
the super target site too, right?
Yep, all kinds of stuff.
But this is really the first gate, right? Look at it that way. This is the first gate to get through the
Yep.
hurdles, whatever, funnel, call it whatever you want.
Yep.
This is our rules of engagement. You pass
Okay.
these, you're in. You don't, you're out.
You pass these, you get to keep having the conversation.
Yes.
If you don't,
It's
thank you
real
for.
yeah, it's very easy.
Yeah, that's what it's designed to be. So it shouldn't be like, I don't personally look at a lot of these things, and maybe the financial component, you know, Tom and I can work through this before it gets to the work session, if that's the direction we're gonna go. Like, this is not meant to be punitive in any way, it's just a bare threshold to start the conversation. And I did this, I mean, I said this to Tom and I'll say it, you know, publicly, like, while we do have a chapter 100 project that's in front of us, when I wrote this, I intentionally didn't score it, I didn't use it as an example, I just was like, so I don't have any idea. If we were to approve this as it is right now, I don't know what tier that project is. I mean, I could guess if I looked at it right now, but you know, to me, it comes off as a tier 2 project, which means we get to have the conversation.
Yep.
Which is kind of probably how most things should be, I mean, unless something is really crazy. Probably most things are tier 2. So the idea would be, if you guys like this, we can make some tweaks. And I think we can probably do this going into the work session. Tom, tell me if I'm wrong. But we can make some tweaks to the dollar amounts to make it make a little bit more realistic sense, because those are, you know, national numbers. Everybody is a little bit different when it comes to that. But the idea would be, you know, recommend the city council adopt the City of Wildwood discretionary tax incentive policy framework and incorporate it into the city's current procedures for the review and processing of requests for public funding assistance, and apply it to all future discretionary development incentive requests. So if you guys like this, we can do that. If you want to keep working on it, we can bring it back around. Just know that, you know, we have some competing timelines, I think.
And we'll be working on inserting verbiage as far as timing of the request.
Yeah, so
in the future.
so the way I kind of look at this is a little bit like we did the gates and the
Sure.
blockage
Sure,
thing,
sure, sure.
where it's like, you know,
I just want to make sure that that was.
yeah, we want to get it dialed in. So when it becomes a bigger conversation where everybody can go, maybe it should be $780,000 instead of 200 and whatever. Fine. All that stuff's where that happens at the next part.
Yeah, I mean, I think with a little fine tuning, I like it and I think it's needed.
Okay. Well, if you'd like to make the motion, we can make that work.
I'll make the motion that we approve it as written with a few tweaks on, what do we say, timing?
Timing and the dollar amounts.
And dollar amounts.
Okay. All right, made by Mr. Backert, seconded by Mr. Vanek. Any other questions, concerns, or discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? So Tom will get those things figured out. All right, that's good stuff. That brings us to our erosion funding article for the Gazette.
Thank you, Chair. This should be a quick one, but hopefully everyone had a second to review the memo that came with. At the last meeting, there was discussion about communicating the governor's recent veto, and we have been promoting the original email. Obviously, a little bit worked up to the point where it's not directed to the council, it would be your residents. That said, we were trying to incorporate this directly into the Gazette, but it said it was gonna take about 4 pages of the Gazette, because it was a long. That said, we only have 12 pages of the Gazette, and it's our 30th anniversary. I mean, if the committee's
Yeah,
okay with
please
it, we
bear
can
that.
do that. But we also have you can fit 500 words on one page. So I provided a 500-word version that's pretty starkly written, trying to utilize the same themes. That said, the motion directly carried that we would publish the exact version. There'd be another side of this where a QR code would be included in the Gazette, which would say, hey, read more about this. And the first thing that would show up when they scan the QR code is the full text as written in the first Exhibit A. And then it would also have a link to the website and to the vetoes. So wanted to get everyone's opinion on that tonight, because we do have a publishing deadline. We could publish the whole thing. It would just be 4 pages. And that would, with our 30th anniversary, being our 30th anniversary edition, we were.
I will just add this, having done, not for the city, but done this for some other entities. Anything we can do in the Gazette that can help us to understand readership action, so a QR code call is an awesome thing to have. As much as I would like to have all of this out there in written form that way, this gives us an ability to go, hey, we had, 9 people or 9,000 people click on this thing.
The people that are gonna read it are gonna hit the QR code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the fact, and you make a fair point. You could mine a lot more and better information from the QR code than you could from the content.
And the good news is too, we're able to still have like a call out of it, of kind of an executive summary of the full text. And then it says, hey, are you interested in the subject, or you want to learn more? And you click on it, it has that letter, and then we're gonna actually use that to start building out kind of different trunks of communication for the erosion issue on top of what we have.
We could maybe even put a survey in that link too.
Yeah, that would be
a good idea.
very open, very,
Not gonna read 4 pages,
yes.
so I feel like if it's shorter, they're gonna look at it and you're gonna get the information out to more people where they're gonna look at 4 pages, they're gonna go, forget it, and they're gonna move on.
Right.
Much better.
Cliff?
Did we talk about this in the EDC? To get the leader in the West County, get articles in there beforehand with the QR code too. Paula had one in there about that thing, the historic wildwood preservation. And, I came up to that meeting, they had a pretty good crowd, and maybe that helped. So I really think we should look at that kind of stuff too with promoting things,
Yep.
So.
Good point.
Mr. Mabry?
I saw this as fleshing out and proving as a proofing process, like your rising bread dough or something. And it's going to put the people into 2 distinct camps. If it's this long, the ones that don't read it are going to be in the camp that don't care. They'll vote no on a bond issue for watershed task force. The ones that do read it are in the yes camp, because they want to know every tooth and nail and part that comes with these 3 year in a row vetoes. The fact we're never going to get $0 from the state. We already don't get $0 from our own, like MoDOT. We're already, we're always on the tail end of those entities. So any way to have us get a head start on knowing how many people we have in each of these two camps, I saw this as a perfect way of getting a head start on that. Your QR code, I'm not that well versed in what their power is. But if you get the responses from people who either, if you can measure the amount of time they spent going with their little feeler on this one, do you go, wow.
We have an issue, right? Do we use issue?
Not yet.
We should.
Yeah, we can't, you definitely do that. We were kind of playing that with that. We moved from 16 to 12. We're trying to play with the format for this next version of the Gazette to then.
What if we did it, I mean, it may be, when does this go out?
This has to go out before Celebrate Wildwood. So we we had to finalize like text. We have
So-
text finalized. but
Well,
we
so I guess what I'm saying though is like, if this text to me is fine, and I will, whoever wants to make, if somebody wants to change the motion, whatever, that's fine, but if we were to use a system, rather than just going, here's a link to to our city's website, if we did it through issue where we're just basically digitizing this, it doesn't take, I mean, I can do that for you guys, that's not a big deal. That gives us what Bob's talking about, which is like, you know, we had 500 people read this and 300 of them got to the end and they spent, 12 and a half minutes on this section or whatever it is. Those kind of metrics are available in there. And it allows us to retarget them as well, which is
It would tell us that, yeah, our bond issue has a snowball's chance in hell.
right.
Our other results would say, we're gonna waste a lot of money putting this to vote, what's gonna pay?
There's two things with that too, and I know it's on the agenda, I don't know if the attachment's on there, but that ties in, we actually have a pretty simplified survey to try to gauge, that was kind of an idea for, if you want to go out and talk about that
Yeah.
initiative. But the idea would be to ask some very baseline questions. Actually open that up real quick. It would have this included, and once they get on there, it'd say, hey, what are your thoughts? Kind of asking and feeding. We would also know when someone scans the QR code, that counts and registers. We collect that data. And we're able to say, well, the number of site users for that specific URL. So we'll be able to tell how many people clicked on it or got to it via, other ways too. But we'll also be able to know how long they're on the page. So that data we could record.
I would encourage you guys, it's a little bit off this specific thing, but I would encourage you to put a couple other things throughout the Gazette with
Everything's gonna
those.
have a
So
QR
we
code.
can actually get a real understanding of how much back and forth you get.
Yep.
I think that.
Also,
No,
Go ahead, Tracy.
we also have to understand there are people that are gonna read the Gazette that have no idea what a QR code is or how to use
There
it.
you
And some people are busy and their kids are crawling on their legs and they're gonna read the short version. Doesn't mean they're opposed to it.
Right.
They just don't have time to go in and do the whole thing. So those numbers could be a little skewed. I don't necessarily think because they don't click on it that they're opposed.
And they'll also be able to access it, just as a heads up for everybody to feel a little bit better. If someone just stumbles upon our website, it'll also live on the website too, live and breathe. So they will be able to, they click in watershed erosion, it'll have that document that shows the messaging, if you will, along with the survey that we can talk about here in a second.
The biggest concern I have is anything that we put in print or say or allude to, has the city done its best to protect against being charged with promoting an issue, as I'm told that,
Well, we aren't promoting anything yet. We're just saying,
then we're making sure that we're not saying at the bottom, hey, this is all gonna mean something important when we put our ballot out.
Nope. The minute it's actually the council has to approve the ordinance, and then once the ordinance is submitted to the Board of Elections, at that point when they file it, that's when everyone on the council, but also the city as a body can no longer speak. biasly
But the
on it.
governor can't come back and say, you're stacking the deck in your favor and making me look bad
Oh,
on
no.
purpose so that I'm gonna X, Y, Z.
Nope,
You-
the governor, that one doesn't matter, because the governor should have given us a call.
yes, sir.
Now we've talked about our reserve being too large, right? And using some of that money for the watershed. So what's the plan? That way or a ballot issue?
So it'll-
Or both or?
I would suggest this, and I don't wanna cut you off, Tom, but I think I could probably say this easier than you can. So the idea would be, we've got a couple things that are happening. One, we're gonna talk about in a minute, which is our capital improvement situation.
Oh, yeah.
The next one is our reserve situation.
Okay.
And then the following one is, how do we come out at the end of the day if a ballot initiative is necessary? So like what I would say right now, if we put an initiative on the ballot, you know, in August, which obviously we're not doing,
Right.
is that, hey, we need to have money for stormwater and parks. Anybody's gonna look at this and go, you guys have,
Right,
what are you talking about?
right,
That's not to say we wanna go out and blow a bunch of cash on stuff.
right.
But at the end of the day, when you look at the reality of the scope of this situation, we could spend 100% of our reserve and everything in our capital improvement budget on the watershed and still need more money.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the idea would be like, we need to get as a council, we need to get our budgetary thing understood. We need to have that conversation about, you know, what is the right amount of money to have in the reserve? From what we've been told now, it seems like what, Tom, like not $8-9 million, right?
In the reserve,
In the reserve,
where that,
how much?
$19 million.
No, how much we should have, not how much we
Oh,
do.
so technically, right now, per law, we have 25% of operating, so that's approximately about 3 million.
And we talked about going to 50.
We talked about going to 50, and we actually, and this will be presented next month, but we had our auditors, but also our finance officer do some run some comps from other annual comprehensive financial reports. And typically, you'll see anywhere between about 40 to about 60%. 60 is the high end for other municipalities. That said, each municipality also is showing increase in expenditures year over year.
Mhm.
And also dipping in, some other municipalities are showing some dips into their own reserves. But that said, they're not sitting at 157% of operating like we are. They're sitting usually around 40, and that's a healthy city. Like St. Peters, Missouri they make a lot of revenue.
So in theory, if we had, let's say, between $5 and $8 million to spend and fixing City Hall costs
That's
us
the other elephant.
$1 million. Okay?
Yeah.
Because personally, all of those things the City Hall thing is just deferred maintenance. We just didn't pay for it when we should have. We also have, you know, the parking garage over there that's gonna be very expensive and some other items, you know,
What is it?
maybe, you know, this Main Street thing that we wanna get squared away. I don't know. So there are items that need to be taken care of that are kind of these never-ending conversations. And then once we take care of those things, you know, philosophically, we all get to make our choice. Do we, you know, are we gonna maintain the things that we have before we add new things or not? And then that's how we balance it all out.
Is the garage yet structure issues?
I mean,
We're actually, right now, it's a little bit more difficult than that. There's a way to do it. That said, the CCID, we're actually planning on publishing a RFP to do the second deck ceiling and also do replace some of the joints that are kind of holding it up. It's not dangerous at this point. It's been inspected. There's areas that need repair. Overall, the thing that I noticed, and Rick's our traffic engineer, he could give a
Okay.
better explanation, but when it rains, yeah, it's got water infiltration. It's not looking great.
Yeah, I was. in-
but I mean, between the garage and the fountain, I mean, that's about roughly $1 million.
Yeah, with all the repairs you need for the garage, yeah, I'd say so.
So, I mean,
Million here, million there.
you know, it's $1 million. Exactly. Exactly.
Definitely spend.
So
Yeah.
then, unless there's anything else, Tom, you would like a motion to approve of this as is?
Motion, as is fine, as long as you're all okay with the wording, but using that with the understanding that we'll have a QR code that links to the full text, not a problem, and then we can talk about the survey questions too.
I'll make that.
All right, made by Mr. Albers, seconded by Ms. Nyant. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that's good. That brings us to our capital improvement budget.
All right, now as a handout, sorry for getting in a little late, what you'll find in front of you today, is the tiered out system for 2026. There are some honorable mentions for 2025 that haven't had the trigger pulled on them, and meaning there hasn't been an agreement that has been authorized by the city council and executed by the mayor. So that includes the Village Green Phase 2, even though it's budgeted this year, in order to encumber those funds for fiscal year 2026, you actually have to sign an agreement for that year. Same goes for Old State Road Shared Use Path and the Route 109 BA South Roundabout Project. All three of those projects, large ticket items that right now are budgeted for fiscal year 2025. That said, they would need an agreement on file in order to not have them if you want to carry them over into 26. What you'll see here is first and foremost, the three tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And then if you turn the page, there is a matrix that is weighted and ranked based off all the projects that were listed in our 5-year capital. There was a basis and an explanation of the rankings is at the very bottom, page 3 of the capital project priority matrix fiscal year 2026. Under the methodology explains how it was ranked and how it works, but really it takes from left to right, right being your highest criterion, and if the council has the committee has an issue with this, how it's ranked, let me know, we can go back and change it. But on the far left, you've got, still an important thing, but when you take a number like 0, 3, 5, and 9, and it's for tourism and recreation, which is ranked 1, if you put for instance, like Old Pond school repairs, for tourism, it doesn't actually affect tourism, not too much for recreation since people aren't using it. If it was the playground, maybe different. That said, it's a 0, you would actually multiply 0 times 1, which equals 0, so no additive points there. But if let's just say it was 10 and you got a score of 3, you actually multiply 3 times 10. I know this is sounding a little confusing, but it's to make it so if you're hitting the master plan points, you're getting an extra boost. Whereas if you're hitting the tourism points, you're still getting a boost, it's just not as amplified, exponential growth. So each one of these projects that are listed in the capital project priority matrix FY 2026, we went through each one of them. This one is from the city administrator's perspective. Department heads have not weighed in to the extent we are just putting this whole template together, but then the criteria weights is where I really want to get down to, is it explains the 0, 3, 5, and 9, why those are important. So the master plan, how closely does the project align with the goals, objectives, priorities outlined in the city's master plan? For example, a 0 would mean the project's not mentioned or aligned in any way. City's master plan or support its objectives. It's a 3. It would align in kind of in principle with something mentioned in the master plan or one of its elements, but it's not a prioritized component that's specifically stated. 5 would be something that definitely supports one of the missions or one of the policies, but it might not be, that project might not be specifically stated. And then 9, it's something that's in the master plan, it's stated over and over again. That's the kind of approach we went with. The 5-year strategic plan as well. Is it included? If it is it specifically named, and so forth. I guess the more important part would be to let everybody go through this, but if I wanted to provide the actual scoring sheet, because then if the council would like to, the committee would like to go through it, take the paper copy, and we'll send out an email version. This was just something I was tightening up tonight, this morning, over the weekend. If you would like to go through this and you disagree with any of the scores, I think that would be a really great thing. If you want to, I can share with you an Excel doc that already has all the equations formatted. So if you went in there and changed the number and just sent it to me with your initials at the back end, I would be able to take your scores and just say, here's Councilmember Backert's scores. And then if we like, something we did for the Charter Settlement Fund, which I found very useful. We took this similar type of approach for how we were gonna spend those settlement funds. And we ranked out a bunch of projects, and then we took the average scores for each individual council member that submitted answers. And then we took that, and if there were standard deviations, we accounted for it. So if someone's clearly supporting one project and everyone else gets a 0, it's able to call that out. And then to save, we can either have the council member scores listed transparently or having it be respondent 1, respondent 2, respondent 3, either way. I just wanted to kind of show the process in which the department went through it, but also very open to suggestions or just going through it as a whole. I think this is a great starting point, though, to get started on 2026.
All right, Mr. Mabry.
Please don't explain it here, but can you send something that provides a rationale for how you came up with your multipliers?
Yes. Well, I can do it quick. This one actually pretty quick. So the multiplier, and it's a base ranked system where anytime you do weighted criteria, typically what you're gonna do is your number of criterion is gonna be your max. You can actually change it. It can be, this is just a standardized way. So master plan is 18, so that is weighted at 18x of whatever your score is versus the tourism and recreational impact, which would be 1. So if there's someone gets a 9 on the tourism scale, project gets a 9 they're just getting 9 points. Whereas if they get a 9 on the master plan, and that means it's heavily hit within the master plan, or it's very much supported by our master plan, then you're actually taking 9 times 18, which I need a quick calculator there, but you're taking 9 times 18 and that's added to your score. So each one goes down one after another, so it's saying for 10, if you have a score of 9 and then you actually are getting, well, you're getting 10 points there, then it would actually be 900 points, 9 points, sorry, for that same exact criteria. But the main thing tonight, that when we can send this out as PDF and also Excel, wanted the committee to go through this and go through also the actual ranking criterion. We want to change this, we certainly can. And the idea would also be to have the Planning and Parks Committee review their parks items. And then also have the council, at the end of the day, have this as supporting materials, but have department heads submit their scores and we can kind of have a bunch of different scores listed out. If we have all those, then it'd be a really cool time for data analysis, so not opposed.
I missed it. I'm sorry to take the floor so much, but have you got these numerically ordered by their cost or by their priority? So Cone Park repairs is by what criteria is it number one? You just threw a dart at a wall or it's number one on this list for a purpose?
Oh, that was just the way it was listed in the capital improvement budget. So that had no, the more important page there is the first page where it's got tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and that's just in the order at which we are copying it over from another Excel document. So don't take any, don't read into the order of the projects. I would be more so looking at the first page, seeing if you disagree with any of the projects that are not in tier 1, because tier 1 are obviously highest priority. And then same goes for going through the criterion, like saying, okay, I actually think the business needs economic development benefits, that should be 16 versus being right now a 6. If there's a difference in opinion on how we want to actually grade each project, that's fine. We just want to make sure that comes out and we'll be able to go through it again and run the numbers again.
Anybody got anything else? I would say, just for clarity's sake, it might help. I like most of this a whole lot. I would maybe just suggest like either add something up at the top that is explaining the 1 to 18 or reverse the order.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get you.
Reversing order is probably a little easier. And then I would also suggest like for each of these projects, maybe color code them because they're all green, right? I think. In here, yeah, so color code them based on tier and then line them up based on score. So like whatever, let's see,
Scored the highest.
the top score
So pretty much, I think I know.
in tier 1 is bridge, are the 2 bridges.
Yeah, rank them
It
top
looks
to
like-
bottom.
That's
You can get
that.
a quick snapshot.
Yeah, so then it should be like tier 1.
So pretty much taking this first page, but having it broken out in the priority score matrix, you would pretty much see that duplicated on the side. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't even know, honestly, I'm not even certain that you need this first page if you do that.
You don't. Yeah.
Because tier 1 is green, and tier 2 is yellow, and tier 3 is red.
Kind of combine them almost, yeah.
Yeah.
We can certainly do that.
It does tell us fund sources though on the first page.
It does. That was the reason why we wanted to break it. I mean, maybe we'll do that. We'll keep this to highlight, because the other thing is that this secondary page didn't show the cost, so this was like a referral.
But like,
Going back and forth.
I don't disagree, Tracy, but what I would say is like, when we first kind of came up with this, the idea was if something is a tier 1 project, that is a mission critical, has to get done. And like, I don't see in here anything below tier 1 that has any additional funding stuff connected to it. So while like it's important to know that it's getting funding, if it's a tier 1 project for a reason. Like, I think if there happened to be like some tier 2 thing that had it, maybe just have some way to say, oh, we have, Rick got us $300,000 for Etherton Road, whatever,
Okay, gotcha.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, my assumption would be, based on how we're doing this, if that happened, it now moves up to tier 1 anyway.
Yep, that would be, because that would also, and great example. So that actually ties into criterion 11, which is the external funding feasibility, which if you have funding secured, then you're gonna get a 9 there. Then you're gonna take 9 times 11, and that's gonna be a pretty large amplifier versus you get a 0 if there's no funding available. And then 3 is like, we know of it, but it's not likely. And 6 is, it's likely, we know it's there. It's just we haven't applied for it yet.
Yeah, so, I mean,
I think if you put these in the tiers like their suggestion, it's gonna be black and white.
Boom.
What we
yeah,
do and what we
I
don't
think
do.
especially like when we get Rick and Joe's score, whoever else is doing these things, like to me,
Yeah.
that's not to say that like no tier two thing is
Especially
gonna
with funding.
happen, but it allows, you know, either the city, the staff or whomever on the council to advocate for, you know, I really think we gotta do the ash tree replacements, like I think that we need to do that, but you know, let them advocate for it rather than just being like, no, it's in there, because even like I've said this before, like I forget where segment C and E and F are on the Strecker sidewalk stuff, but I mean, that's all up. There's code site, yeah, so like, while I am not saying I'm happy to give that money back, it's not happening anytime soon.
That one's tough because I tried to work into criteria, the department tried to work a criterion and they're about legal implications, literally saying how difficult it's gonna be. That
Mhm.
said, you almost need that to be like a black and white.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is that is black.
Yeah.
Like that, to me, there is a legal thing that says we're not able, that removes that down the line, where then it maybe goes to a new list that says of our currently legally unviable projects, this is a tier one project.
Gotcha. So in that case, to help for clarity's sake, do you think it would be beneficial to still keep this system, like grading it like this, but then to have in like kind of an overarching, you know, wrecking ball, if you will? First you had to answer this question, are we in active litigation about?
Yeah, is this legally
Yes or no?
viable? The answer is no.
Yes, okay.
So,
Do that.
and I mean, Rick, you tell me, I know you didn't get to score this yet, but like, if we didn't have the legal situation we have on Strecker, that would be a pretty big priority, I assume, right?
Likely, yeah.
So then the idea would be like, if we didn't have this extenuating circumstance, this would move over to this side of the list, but we do. And
So
until
it's-
this circumstance is gone, it's off the list. And once it comes back, then there's not some argument about like, well, why does this get to go in front of everything? This is why. And I mean, that's, I think, a one of one situation from what I can tell.
It is. I
Is
mean,
there a bunch of those parking lot type issues, or is that like a,
You mean the Anniversary Park thing?
yeah, no, just to your point on the, what you were just talking about, is there a bunch of those that fall into that category?
There's just one.
yeah, it's a pretty,
But it's a pretty big one,
Yeah,
right?
it's a
it's a
one.
pretty big, it's a large segment.
So like to me, and you know, I always think the budgets, these types of the budget is always a little bit silly to me. I personally would prefer that we don't encumber $325,000 in something that is not currently legally viable.
And technically this, and I wanted to kind of start off small because eventually this will stretch into the 5-year, which is gonna add 2027, 28,
This should-
29, and 30 now.
Yep.
So that said, you would actually see if you had year 2027, technically we're projecting E and F's construction, so it's actually more.
That's what I'm saying. So all we're doing with that specific project is
Putting it on
just
the.
pause.
Yep,
And it's not gonna take up, I mean, like, that's where we can get back to the reserve thing if it's necessary. Like, if all of a sudden that the legal situation cleared up overnight and all of a sudden we could build it, then it's like, great, here's $1 million, go build that thing.
Right, well, and that's what I was saying, so that one's almost like in a parking lot of its own, right?
Yep,
And
yep.
but it can totally screw the other 3 years up if you keep it
Correct.
all fine.
it definitely
And that's
does.
the big thing, right? So what
It takes
what
up
do you
room.
need today? And you can't, that's not even on the highway, it's in the parking lot.
That's true, and it does take up space, that's the big component that said, I think there's folks that, you know, there is a belief that if you remove it, even if you put it on the special list, which I think is a good idea, that if you have it off the official, like, when we'll get to this in budgeting, we'll have the 5-year. If you take it off the 5-year, that it's no longer a priority. That said, it's still within our strategic plan. Clearly, it supports our master
Well-
plan. It's scored very highly because of how.
And if we line up, if we do the strategic plan appropriately, which is not project based, it's concept based, that's what we're gonna fix up, right? So the reason that has been a problem in the past is because there has been no framework to not make it that.
So just keep-
That's what this fixes. So then, because you know, the other side of this is like, you know, when, let's see, specific to Strecker Road, you know, Katie terms out next year, I term out a couple years after that. Whoever comes on is gonna have no idea that the Strecker Road thing has existed for however many years it's been on the budget.
Yeah.
So like, that's why you need to have these continuity of things to say, hey, this thing's is sitting over here for this reason and this reason only. So I think it's a good start. I would just for clarity, I would just swap the order of those things and just,
Is it all right if I still start, if we go 18-1 still, because that just helps with the multiplication, it doesn't.
yeah,
matter.
yeah, I don't,
But just have 18 start the list with like just.
yeah, just count backwards. Okay. Yep.
And then we'll color.
And then color it, and then I would also, I mean, it should be pretty easy, like I would color it based on tier and then organize it based on score.
Yep, that's fine.
And if it's easy to do, so you don't have to refer back, like, I'm not saying this is good or bad or just cause it's any, but like Cone Park repairs is $100,000 and it scores 506. Put that, have a line in here that like, this is $100,000, just so that you don't have to go like, how much does that cost? I just think that'll make your life a whole lot easier.
Quick question when you got it.
Yep.
Okay, so unforeseens, like let's say county council, skies parted. And they decided that they got a little bit of money, they want to contribute towards a roundabout at Ridge Road. Since roundabout Ridge Road is not on here, is that going to be, if the county's looking for matching funds from Ellisville and from Wildwood, I mean,
Yeah,
it's not preventing.
so I would say if obviously it's unlikely that would happen, but if it did,
But
the conversation would then come to the council and it would be like, do you want to, then it becomes more of like a mid-year adjustment kind of a situation. Where it's like, cause I think we voted a couple of years ago to put some amount of money towards that, didn't we?
Yeah.
If they matched, I thought that there
I
was
think
some
there
vote.
Well, it was Ellisville.
There was agreement towards a tip app where all three parties
Yes,
contribute.
that was, but we didn't get the
We didn't
agreement.
get the tip
They
app.
didn't work.
But so to me, like in a situation like that, because like that piece of information now goes, hey, we did this. We agreed to this 6 years ago, whatever it was. Is there some reason, we've been working on this all this time from an advocating standpoint, not like it's parked on a budget somewhere. But like, why wouldn't we do this? That becomes more the question. And then, whether it's, you and Mr. Krantz or whomever can go, hey, guys, this is like same thing with the sidewalk thing with, like put that on a different, like, if we could do it, how much would, if it's $250,000, it's here, here's why it's not happening, because we need to get matching funds from X, Y, and Z.
So should it be listed?
I mean, we could put a tier in there. I mean, does that help you guys to have that's?
An unfunded tier?
Yeah, where it's just like, hey, if all of a sudden the county were to give us however much it costs and Ellisville had to contribute and we had to contribute. I would say the same thing kind of applies to the watershed stuff, like if somebody decided to give us $1 million and it required us to.
Yeah, we could have an unfunded list.
Unfunded.
That's how other organizations
Wish
do it.
list.
Well, we could really have an unfunded list, right?
But that unfunded list could include scores too with them, like then you would have that sitting at, like, if the money comes available, what's the highest score?
Yeah.
It's probably.
Yeah, cause like, I mean, because it's not on here, I assume it would probably score relatively high. And so if you're, like, to me, once you put a concept like this together, any conversation where we went, hey, cause we did this with the J-turns thing where somebody came in and were like, this went from a this to a 2.6, and all of a sudden we were like, well, that makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't we do that? You know what I'm talking about, Rick? Somebody came up with a metric, I thought it was for the J-turns, where it was like, this is the score, if we do it, this becomes the score, and the score was like so dramatically different that it was like, this becomes now a no-brainer. This is like, yes, it is expensive, but the cost is
Oh,
too.
the cost benefit ratio?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was based off, that was,
I don't remember who put, I thought.
there was
MoDOT
one
used
for, it was definitely one for the high friction surface treatment too, that showed
Yeah.
that one stretch,
They calculated it.
and it was like,
The cost ratio as part of the justification for the project, yes.
Yeah, so something, I mean, it doesn't have to be that exact ratio, but like something along those lines where it's like, hey, this means, this isn't, I like Jim, so I'm gonna support Ridge Road. It's like, it's just math. This makes more sense than this thing. That's how I would set it up. That just makes everybody's life, I think, a little bit easier. We still get to make the decisions, it's just. Okay, so Tom, what else do you need on this? Anything?
Any feedback's warranted. We'll go ahead and incorporate the changes, but then the department would
I
like to
think
have
your
the-
capital, I think your city hall investment is too low.
Well, that was just, and another thing, this is literally carrying over what's in the capital improvement program, so we are not gotten to adding in. I didn't wanna change the numbers, so then someone would be like,
Yeah, I
hey,
get it.
the 5 year says this, why are you putting an extra 200K here or whatever? That said,
Well, we'd like the roof to stay on the building.
the city hall, I will say city hall needs to be higher.
Way,
And we
way
can
higher.
yeah, that's very true.
Okay, anybody have anything else on any of these items or any of the suggestions? Okay, need a motion or anything, or are you good?
Nothing in this case, but we'll have it back next month with the changes recommended and also having some of these added on, kind of a unfunded need item.
Yes.
Awesome work on this, by
Yeah,
the
this is
way.
good.
Really good
And
stuff.
I mean, I would even suggest, I mean, I don't know how hard it is, I would suggest carry out the 5 years, just so people understand this is what this is.
Yeah, and we could definitely do that. It's gonna be yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
Well, but you could say, I mean, I would say
Legal
whatever
basis.
the number, whatever the date is where it completes out,
Mhm.
just do that.
Okay,
You know what I mean? So like, you know, if we were to build the Strecker Road thing, it's not gonna take 5 years if we started it today. So then it would be like, no, this is 26 and 27.
yes.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
Okay, that brings us to our review of proposed communication protocol.
All right, thank you, Chair Farmer. So this is taken into some feedback from last month's meeting, also just incorporating kind of an official policy. So what's currently included here is what we try to follow indirectly, and it's more so internal policy, but the idea was to bring forth a policy of how we communicate internally, but also communicate outbound to residents. So in the memorandum tonight, what you'll see is, you know, different categories, different kind of things that could be happening around the city, which includes capital projects, delays in timing for those projects, anything that we're doing, utility work, new construction that's not necessarily, you know, ours, it could be a developer or a homeowner, something that's big enough where possibly get a phone call. Proposed property sales, like something like the LaSalle property, it's a big one. Change in land use, so major zoning change, development applications that got approved, multi-phase or long-term projects requiring permits. That one's kind of the same as before, but school district news, disruptions and changes to MoDOT or St. Louis County projects, emergency repairs, obviously those are, you know, top tier, you know, get info out as soon as possible. And then just other things that, you know, this one's where you kind of have to leave a little bit of flexibility, but other things that if a director or the department hears about it, we know it's probably gonna generate inquiries, so we're gonna go ahead and implement the policy. So the way this works is we would look at internal communication, and it would be one of these items that were listed in the categories, but it would lead to a direct email communication from the city administrator to the city council, and that's been done in the past for, you know, different law enforcement issues that may have come up, snow issues, things along those lines. It would also be followed up with a notation in the weekly CA report, and typically we try to do that. And then also having, if it's a big enough issue, having a subsequent report at committee or the city council, depending on what it is. And if it gets to that level, it'd go to a work session. So that's the internal communication flow. Typically, that's the mayor and city council are just gonna be on that email thread, and questions are always warranted. If the council has questions, they can reach out. A key component here is that protocol is followed prior to doing external communication, so then the council's not caught flat-footed. And that if you get a phone call about a certain project that's going on or a repair work that is going on, that you should already have something in the inbox to be able to note it and have as much info as possible. The other side of this is just kind of like documenting what tools we have at our tool belt. We have our news flash, which is kind of a little local alert we have on our website, but we also have an alert that goes on the top of the whole web page when you go to our homepage. We have our Facebook, Instagram pages, YouTube. We don't typically post videos except the videos that we're currently on right now. We have an e-newsletter that sends through email and SMS, and then really our Gazette. Other than that, we're doing direct mailers, which we use quite a bit. We also do public notices that hang up in our parks and also go into our vestibule upstairs. But really where this comes in is kind of process for external comms as well. So first and foremost, it's confirming the details, say a water main's blown, okay, we want to double check that Missouri American Water has this posted on their website already, have somewhere to direct them. Go ahead and this is kind of internal jargon, but it's stuff we already do, but we want to make sure it's now listed, but establish the web presence first. So we already have sent the email out to council and the mayor. We're gonna go ahead and create a home for the issue on our website, whether it be through a spotlight or alert. Then typically we're going to proceed with the social media posting on Facebook and Instagram, depending on the issue. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to do it, but sometimes it does. Sometimes you just want to put it on the website. We could talk about those situations here tonight as well. But then also we've done this before is we've taken the Ease newsletter, that distribution list, which is approximately 2,300 folks. And we've sent out special editions. So when we had the large snowfall event, we've sent it out when we had the tornado, the E3 that hit out west. We send out information through that. So we almost, if the occasion where it's really severe weather based or if there's a public emergency, typically we're going to communicate that to the e-news. We're going to use every communication tool on our belt. The other side of it, if it's more of a long-term issue, that's when we can start talking about having, kind of consistent updates on social media and on the web page itself, which would typically be weekly if it's a long-term project. We do that right now for the Route 100 project. We're doing it for the Village Green, and we're doing that for our Manchester Taylor project. Same could be said for projects that like the AT&T project that went out. They sent out their own mailers, but we also sent out our own mailers. So it depends on the level of the issue and how much budgeting we have, funds we have left to do a mailer. But overall, we do a lot of this for the deer management program and also doing this for anything that could potentially impact a resident's home. We're going to send them a letter. The other item is the Gazette. Obviously, we want to include major stories. If it's reaching the Gazette, typically it's a major initiative we're trying to cover and typically is reserved for long-term projects. But overall, tonight, the department is just putting in kind of an internal process that we have, implementing it. Then we'll go ahead and have this on file. But this could be something that would be approved through a resolution and would not need, full ordinance. But tonight, have any questions? The department's available.
All right, Mr. Mabry. How
How much money are you saving by cutting down the Gazette 25%?
It is for mailing purposes, it's about $6,000. So it's from postage, not postage. Postage too, it's a little bit less in weight, but really it's from production. If you look at that material that the Gazette's made out of, it's a very nice piece of paper.
It's great, but I'm surprised that we're cutting the size of a mailed out glossy publication like that that's got chock full of information, that we voluntarily reduce that opportunity to provide that much more, a third more information than you said 12 pages. Well, what we got now, you'd be cutting down 25% for a measly $6,000. Not kidding.
We're trying, and the whole idea here is we're trying to make the articles somewhat shorter and then having them be accompanied with a link to the website and a QR code. So then we can start tracking how many people are actually engaging with the Gazette. So that's the idea behind it. I mean, we can go back to 16. We had a discussion last year in this committee where it's like, we need to start kind of thinking refresh because we spend $25K on each edition. That's where
You spend $25K on each edition,
Mhm.
and you'd be spending $6,000 less than that.
that we would be spending 6,000 less. So we'd be spending 19 versus 25.
each edition?
Yeah, so it's like we budget $54,000 for the Gazette each year.
The conversation we had, I think it's even more relevant now that we've got Paul on board. We started to have it when we had Gina is, we're asking Paula to effectively communicate all kinds of stuff. And so currently the communication budget consists of what the Gazette is. That's it. So giving her the opportunity to go, if, I think the exercise we did with Gina was, it was like, if you had $54,000, what would you do with it? And her answer was, not this Gazette. And as a person who has published things like that, that would also be my answer.
And I would say I would look at it as not the 6,000, I would look at it as the 100,000. And what we're trying to do, at least what I would be trying to do, is wean people off that completely and get them to go where the rest of the world's going, which is paperless and online content and QR codes and, I mean, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're
It's
trying to
just that we
do.
don't need to say calendar.
But I think the approach is a
That's a
good
good-
one in that you kind of keep weaning it down and keep getting sources like the QR code, like links, like things that are trackable. And then.
Right now too, just as a heads up, that when we had this discussion, the idea was, hey, you know, the first Gazette of the year that goes out right before the municipal election, we are not changing that format. We're keeping it 16 pages. We're gonna write out all the articles just fine. I mean, we're doing that for this one too, but the idea was we will, and we also wrote it with the mindset of this could be the one Gazette we write this year. That said, we're going to do this second edition. It's our 30th anniversary. That's the focus of this edition. That what we're trying to do though is maybe do a yearly mailing and then have something else that fills in the gap where it's like a check-in Charlie. And it follows up on all the issues that you may have brought up or any updates to them
Yep.
at the beginning of the year. So if you go back to the first, and I recommend this, and we have copies upstairs if anybody would like some. But for the Spring Gazette, we put all the event data information in there. We had the Gazette, the Celebrate Wildwood event date in there. We usually did it based off of, gets mailed out, we're only going up pretty much to the July 30th, and then the next Gazette covered the remaining portion of the year. We're trying to make it so, hey, this first Gazette will cover everything event-wise that gets approved on a yearly basis. And then we'll do a check-in Charlie halfway through.
Spring one, full-blown normal one, or was it?
That was full-blown normal.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I told you, I thought it was very well done. And I'm for trending towards going down to one, like you're talking, and give Paula some money for things like that.
That's kind of the idea, is that she can take advantage of that and utilize it, kind of have that as almost like her own reserve for, hey, I need you to think creatively to communicate X, Y, Z. How do you do that? Okay, well, then you can start paying for, premium issue.
Or video work or
Yep.
whatever.
Yep,
whatever
that's
stuff that
literally,
communicates a little bit better.
it's a good exercise too, because then you can have an employee kind of show how they can create their own revenue there. So
The economic coordinator has never had a budget.
Still don't.
that is,
Yeah, the other thing about QR codes, they're great if you put them in the right spot. Like I could see us, and again, just an idea guy here, getting to the point where you have what's going on in Wildwood, QR codes around town, on businesses.
Yeah.
Wherever, where when you walk in, you're seeing it and, right, getting people into that mindset. What's going on in Wildwood? Right
Ellisville
here.
does it with their public hearings and their development.
Yes.
They've got a QR code
Yeah.
and they have, I saw it on their sign, they have some kind of text message system there.
The thing that says coffee with mayor and whatever, there's no reason you can't have a QR code. This is what's going on in Wildwood. And it's
yeah, that.
the more you have that, the more people will start to get into the habit of, okay, that's where I go to find out what's going on. Or important information or important dates.
What was that?
So AI is more commonplace. You can do everything on AI.
But yeah,
You
that.
need a car code.
That too, and AI can do some fun stuff as well. That said, how we were kind of thinking about, we're already somewhat thinking
Baby
of that,
steps, right? Baby
yeah,
steps.
baby steps, but we're thinking about that already and having it almost
I'm with you though.
take like a sanitized version of the CA report and have that be publicly available immediately.
Yeah.
So that's where we're putting things together to make it work, but that said, this should allow us to have some access to funding to allow us to explore maybe something we might have to cut some corners elsewhere too, but that's the idea.
I, having done this in a lot of different industries like this, I would just suggest all of these, I like going digital, but make sure that all of the things that you guys are doing are having like a real trackable understanding of what's happening, because what we don't wanna do, and Tracy, I think you were around when we did, having the calendar conversation was like a knockdown, drag out fight. It was insane.
Sorry, I missed it.
It was something. And like, I think like, for instance, I think getting one of these gazettes out a year with a lot of pertinent information the whole year and all of the stuff, I think that's in the near term, I think is a really good idea, but being able to go and look back and see what's happening, because I know, working with ad buys on things, print media is, well, it's dead and it is prohibitively expensive. And there's no way to know if you're successful in any way. It's just kind of like, I don't know, I guess it went out and I heard 3 people said they liked it, so that worked out pretty well. So we just want to just make sure that all those things are really trackable, because the other side of this is, I think from a city standpoint, with a lot of these things, like, you know, any organization gets stuck in a rut of like, well, this is just the way that we always do this. So we always send this thing out in this way, and that's just the way that it is. And if it doesn't work, then you are paying for legacy things that don't matter and all these other kinds of deals. We can be very, very forward thinking on this, I think, for sure.
The other thing is the 10 people that read it are always the loudest.
It's
I
true.
will say there was
It's like the facts.
since we had this conversation there, it was last year around this time, but every time we try to, well, at least when I'm on the phone with residents that call in for random reasons, so typically they're not even calling about the Gazette, but if they're willing to listen for a second, I do try to ask if they read the Gazette. Most of them, if they're calling the city, they do read the physical copy.
Mhm.
I would say like 9 out of 10 folks that I've asked thus far, but then again, it's anecdotal, but people get, I understand where the hesitation could come from about slowly weaning people.
I just think, you know, I think it is the people that read, the people that are calling the city are the people that are interested in what is going on. They're gonna read whatever we give to them. And as long as they have the ability to do it, which although this doesn't necessarily apply to where you're at, Bob, like the city spent a whole lot of money to get people better internet access. And so that was also part of that reason, was to get them up-to-date information.
Yeah.
Because the other side of it is, you know, we might have a concert scheduled that's been in the Gazette all year, and then, you know, we've got some kind of awful whatever, and now we gotta cancel it. And, you know, you're not gonna be able to reach everybody, but you're still gonna have people show up and try to figure out what's going on. So do you need a motion? What do you?
Yeah, motion to, I mean, if there's any changes tonight, the department's more than happy to utilize them, but just the department put together the text of the policy, we would just have this brought before us as a resolution.
All right, I think it looks pretty good. Tracy, you gonna make it?
Move to accept it.
All right, Tracy's gonna make the motion. Jason's going to second it. All those in favor of moving forward with our communication policy, please say aye. Aye. Anyone say no? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes. Rick, I think we're finally to you.
Yeah, use the rest.
Status of the MoDOT and city improvement projects.
Committee members, this is the same update I provided in the previous 2 or 3 meetings now, I believe, relative to mainly projects that are ongoing in the city of Wildwood, given the busy construction season we have. Bill, for any questions in particular, the Manchester Taylor project, as you probably are aware, is wrapping up nicely. They're doing all the final pavement markings and stripings this week, and the resurfacing is done. Signal work is almost complete, and so we're pretty excited about how that's shaping up. We'll be giving them a contractor a final punch list shortly to wrap that project up, but otherwise, things are moving forward, I think, as planned. Our Centaur Bridge project should be wrapping up ahead of schedule. Hopefully this week, they'll reopen the bridge if they get the epoxy surface course applied here tomorrow or soon thereafter. So I'll wrap up. If there's any particular questions you might have, I'll do my best.
Mr. Albert.
Rick, the Route 101 with the J turn says with completion winter, right? The only, when does like paving, general paving on 100? You know, I'm just, the left turn lane at Taylor Road off 100 is pretty bad. When you,
Generally,
people once in a while ask me about that, you know.
Generally, the resurfacing will wrap up around December 1st, more or less. It kind of depends on when the temperatures really cool down.
Okay.
But they've said they have it all scheduled to be done this fall. They're out resurfacing right now on the 2-lane section, if you've been out that far.
No, I haven't.
So they're starting out there.
Okay.
And I think once they get and the J turns are coming along, once they get most of the J turn work complete and the asphalt laid and the J turns, then they'll probably drop back and do the 4-lane section.
Okay.
But they do still obviously have quite a bit of asphalt delay,
Okay.
no question.
Thank you. It's just one area I get people asking about. Go ahead.
The roundabout at Wild Horse Creek and shows fall of this year. What's left? Pretty much, I think just the final restoration. So the final grading, seed and mulch cleanup.
Yeah, those driveways, I saw.
Yeah.
I think most of the hard construction has been completed there as far as I know.
Good. Yeah, thanks, that's, I thought it was done, but here's the rest.
So, yeah, it's well ahead of schedule.
Cosmetics.
Anybody else? Are we gonna, I don't know if we even have one. It might be worthwhile to put a sign at the left turn on Pond with school starting here in a couple weeks to remind people that that isn't gonna go away or be changed here before the end, you know.
That's a good idea.
'Cause everybody going up to Pond and Wild, I mean, there's a lot of people that go up to Pond and Wildwood
J
that
turn
way.
coming,
Yep.
you mean?
Yeah, well, just to let them know, like, hey, you're not gonna just turn here anymore. You gotta go down that way or go around the other way, whatever it is, but just.
One of the two, but not.
Yeah, but not here. We might just wanna stick a sign out there well in advance, cause before people get into the habit and all of a sudden, one day they're like, what is happening? And then I had a question on the resurfacing, cause it does look so nice. But like, are they gonna redo the curbs in the roundabout where they're all busted up, or is that something we have to do, or how does that work? Like specifically when you're coming off of 100 on that first roundabout on 109, the curb all along the left side is all mashed and busted.
So I've been meaning to follow up with MoDOT in terms of the curve. There are a number of curves of what you're talking exactly, and I was meaning to bring that up. I gotta believe they're aware of it. My expectation is they'll fix them, but I haven't gotten that confirmed. Because that's typically the order that they want to.
I mean, I would just, cause it'll be the same thing. I don't know that they're gonna redo our planners or whatever, but that turn at Westland Farms, those are all
Yeah.
mashed as well. I don't know if that's ours.
It's a different story, as you probably know. We've
Yeah.
been working, trying to get their attention to do a little more work there, but the other curbs that are in the roundabouts are within the limits of their work by and large, and I would expect that they would.
Yeah, I would be kind of surprised if they didn't.
Yeah, I
Some
mean,
sort of
that's-
silly.
Typical of what they would do, yes.
It's just they're doing a lot of work to not, it takes away from what would overall,
Yeah.
very nice looking.
Yeah. I don't know, it's weird.
It doesn't help, it doesn't help them, and it's an easy win.
Okay, anything else? All right, well, we got some things to talk about next time, but that brings us, our next meeting will be September 1st. Any miscellaneous items for anybody?
Chair, do you mind if I bring one item up?
Sure.
There was, on the agenda, there was a analysis for the stormwater parks tax. The attachment didn't get put on there, and honestly, it might go better with the comparative analysis for, reserve fund balances, sorry. So could we, if it's okay with the committee, the department would be fine with postponing that till next month, but having that back on the issue. For some reason, it didn't have the attachment.
And are you gonna change the September meeting to Tuesday?
Is
So
it
it's not
currently,
on P and Z night?
let me check something real
Just-
quick there, Mr. Albers. It should be on Tuesday, September 2nd is when it's
Yeah,
scheduled.
it's Tuesday.
Because-
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is that what you said? I'm
Yep.
sorry. I thought you said the first, sorry.
Yeah, no, they're typically, we try to have them on that first Tuesday of the month.
Right, no,
It's just when that,
Okay,
this one was a fun one. Special election.
All right, anybody have anything else?
got it. Thank
You
you.
need a motion to quit?
Motion to adjourn would be great. Yeah. Made by Mr. Mabry, second by Mr. Bacher. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, everybody, we will see you here, I guess, next week, right, for the council meeting, but we'll see you next month for this one.
See you next-
Have a good one, everybody.
next week.
Yep,
and the
thank
week
you.
after.
Good meeting.
Yeah.
Not a-